We'll call the Purchasing, Financial Management, and 2012 Financial Management Committee to order. It is September 26th, 2024 at 3:30. Commissioner Brown, would you mind starting us with an invocation here?
Lord, we come before you at this time, and we're grateful for the fact that we have our life and our health, and we're able to do the things that we would like to do. Lord, may we never take that for granted. We also come on behalf of the citizens of this county. We ask that you give us the wisdom to use the knowledge that we have so that we can make good decisions on behalf of. Help us to always keep in mind and keep in check our own ideas and prejudices and things like that, that we always put others before ourselves. Sacrifice that your Son made upon the cross. It gave us a hope of eternal salvation. Be with us and help us to always be the examples that we should be before other people. We ask this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Everybody take a second to review the agenda. I think we've got some additions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request if we can add under item add a big, under A, I'm sorry,
New business A.
right, under new business A, if we can add another item under 7A, and we have B, that's 2025, we can move that down to C, and add under there B, beach, PO exception for beach lightning strike, because we got the documents that passed out. We need to handle it. It's a PO from last year. And then also under, if you move 2025 to C, add an item, an item 6 and 7 also for the beach tower strikes. I'm sorry, under the B up here should be ECC, and then that 6 and 7 beach. There's two instances. Back under item 7A, if you look, there's a 1 little B's 2025. I'm requesting if we can move that down to C and make item B, ECC lightning strike. And then under what will become C, make an item 6 and 7, which will be beach lightning strike.
Down here.
Yes, ma'am. And we've got the documents of Jessica, can pass them out for when we get down to those items. So we can go ahead and try to process these through since they came across their desk. Not that I'm aware of, unless you got something. I don't think they asked you for anything, but you got to stand on there. Yeah, I know. Not that I can call. It would have been under own business.
You said 6 and 7.
Yeah.
That should be all.
Yeah, 6 and 7.
And then that's C, and then we go into the
6
items.
and 7, yeah. Make sure I said that correctly.
I can move all this by the end of the day.
There will be a quiz.
The which one?
This is it.
We weren't sure.
Or the library. Oh, okay.
Oh, for the contract?
Yeah.
Do they want to sit through the whole thing?
This can
We
be
need
it.
a motion to approve the agendas. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda topic C, this is a fresh cycle, so we need to nominate a new position of chairman and vice chairman.
nominate Terry Boyd as chairman.
Any other nominations?
I make the motion, we nominate Colin as chairman.
I'm not quite sure how to handle this with two motions. Do we?
Have to vote on
See if
the
there's
first
any
one.
other motions.
Have to vote on the first one.
I think usually you vote for one
They're
or
not
the other.
motions, they're just nominations.
Oh, okay. All right, we've got two nominations.
You could make one of mine A, one of them A.
Make a motion, nomination cease, and we'll vote on the candidates.
All right, motion to cease nominations, and we'll vote on the candidates.
I'll second that motion. Vote.
We just do a roll call.
Hold on.
All right, how do I do that?
Start with Todd.
Todd?
No, who would you like to vote for?
Oh, I'll vote for Terry. Commissioner Brown?
I'll vote for Terry.
Terry?
I'll vote for myself.
I'll vote for Terry as well. It's been a good couple of years, but I wouldn't mind passing the time.
Okay. Well, with that little speech, I'll vote for Terry. Terry.
Thank you. So I'll take us to the next item. Item D, Vice Chair. Do you have any volunteers?
I'll nominate, Todd Carter.
Anybody second?
You don't need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Todd Kerr.
You want to close nominations first, maybe?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We didn't have any more nominations.
No
Didn't
more.
have any
Thank
more.
you. Excellent. So we've completed those items. We'll move on to item E, recognition of the public. You see none? Item F, approval of the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes. All in favor. We'll move to item 2, report of the committee chairman. As the acting chairman, do you have any items before us?
Nothing major. Just appreciate, everybody's hard work the last couple of years. I think we've got, obviously a lot to cover today, but another full year of progress, I think, can be made. And we can, help move the county forward, get us better aligned with all the processes and systems we need to. So it's not the sexiest work that we've done, but it's the stuff I think that pays the longest long-term dividends in terms of productivity, in terms of freeing up people to do things that add value, like, fixing the roads and fixing things and doing things that I like to do. So appreciate everybody's hard work to date, and, hope we can come up with some good solutions for this problem.
I would like to go on record just to say, Colin, thank you for your hard work and your dedicated work and how you approach this. Very analytical and very reasonable, and thank you for that. I'll say.
Appreciate it.
So, just to add to that, I hope I can reap the same praise next year myself. I have no further report at this time. I'll be commenting as we go down. Report of County Mayor.
No report, Madam Chair.
Report of the Law Director.
I have no report, Madam Chair.
The report of the trustee is included in our packet. If anyone has any questions, we can pass on to her. We'll move on. Report of the Finance Director.
My first item is, where's the report of finance? I'm sorry, it's all under old business, so I have no report at this time.
Very good. So we move on to old business. First item A, requested minutes of the Elected Officials Association. Mayor, can you address that?
Yeah, they haven't met.
So do we have the minutes from the other meetings that they've met?
I'm sure, I don't know. It's a loosely formed organization. I'll check and see.
So we can't have a subcommittee meeting without the minutes for the elected official meeting. No, I think we were waiting on those minutes.
I'll check and see.
So.
But they have not been approved even if you do have them, because we haven't met. And I don't know when we'll meet again. I mean, we don't meet maybe once a year.
So how, Mr. Lawyer, how can we proceed?
Well, I mean, you can ask to see minutes, but if they're not approved, they're not official, they won't be kept with the minute taker. And
So what do we do with the subcommittee?
which subcommittee, I'm sorry?
The subcommittee that has
The member.
the members on it.
Policy subcommittee.
The policy subcommittee.
They appoint a member to it.
I don't remember what the makeup of it was.
The one of the members came from the Elected Officials Association.
Oh, that's right, and that's right, so it has to be filled, but do you all have scheduled meetings, or are they just as needed?
It's just whenever we feel like getting together. We don't get together that often, maybe once a year. Typically, it's to talk about budget, and I think we've disbanded that.
You've disbanded the
Talking
subcommittee?
about the budget. Because we're through the budgets, we won't talk about it until next budget year.
So, you don't want anybody on that board? That association doesn't?
I'll have to talk to the members. But I don't even think we addressed that in the meeting. I'll have to go back and look. I'll ask and see. I forgot about the meeting, to be honest with you. But we'll look and see. I'll bring something back to you.
Can I ask Terry, I understand what you're trying to get at, getting the minutes and just to comply with the act itself. But what if they don't meet and the mayor doesn't find a need to meet, which is perfectly fine? If we have work underneath that needs to get done through the subcommittee, I think we need a vehicle to do that.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't know that one exists at this time. I'll have to go back and check the act and.
So the only thing it would have to be is you'd have to have, you don't have, 4 members remaining? And then if there's a subcommittee, you could let them operate, try to do it that way, or maybe discharge it back up to this committee if they can't function.
That's probably what we should do, and like the law director, I would have to refresh my memory, but was it the rules and procedures called for a member?
Private Act did.
The Private Act did?
It's one of the members, but you still have a majority without the member, but if you have a tie, you'd have an issue, but if you have
we just have a member from the elected officials.
voted by them, it is voted by them annually.
Okay.
So, but you could function without it as long as there wasn't a tie.
Yeah, that was the hiccup.
Or you could, if it's something that's really urgent, under Robert Rules, since they're a subcommittee, you could discharge it back.
Discharge it, yeah.
Discharge it back up to the committee if it's, either one will keep it functioning, you discharge it back to this committee.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me research that a little bit.
So which way
Bring something back next month.
And if I could, I know that we've approved our agenda, but the library staff is here, and I'd hate for them to sit through all our old business and all our new business. We're talking a while.
Which issues do they have?
So can we suspend the rules and go ahead and just take care of the library issue?
No.
No, you don't want to. Okay, well, they can say, it's good for citizens to be aware of what we do.
I think there's,
I have no problem.
under C, you've got, item 3 was a excessive P-card fee paid, which, it was just an honest mistake.
So can I get a motion that we can do that? Is everybody okay?
Motion is on the rules.
Okay, very good. All right, very good. Mr. Long, if you could start us.
It's item under now, which would be C3, and one of them was just an excessive P-card fee that was paid. The policy says $3 or below, you can go ahead and pay. Anything above requires my direct approval, and the reason being is we did a study several years back, and it's probably more than that now, but anything $3 $3 or less, it's cheaper for the county to use the P card, so we just put that limit. This one was by mistake, $84. Honest mistake by the librarian, I think it's 84 some odd dollars. I'm just requesting the board approve it and let it flow through.
Second.
Do we have these often?
No, and she sent us an email explaining it and said she'd be more diligent in the future. It was just an honest error.
Excellent.
Didn't realize because they put it as percentages, didn't think about it being the dollar amount, I think was the answer.
All right.
So it was like $3,000 with the lawn care, and they charged,
I think it was 3.5, so it ended up being $85, and just want you guys to put it on, since it's outside the policy, put it on the record to prove it.
So we have a motion, a second, all in favor? Motion passes, we approve that.
The other one's item number 5, and it came back from the county commission. There was multi-year contracts require one of two things, subject to appropriation or approval of the county commission. The librarians inadvertently or through just error, not understanding of the policy, signed the contracts before the county commissions approved it, so the county commission sent it back, just wanting to make sure that they did understand that approval was required before signing. So really, this point's been through the county commission, they have approved it, and I had one exception to grant POs, I did grant them all POs, so I think right now it's just more of a docketing matter, docketed.
All right.
And can I just ask a question? Legal, at what point did you review them? You reviewed them, I assume? You did?
No,
You checked it off?
I did not. I don't usually review these. They come through from finance.
Oh, the contract.
Oh, the
We
contract.
wouldn't give them PO without the contract, yes.
I'll catch up.
I just read it, actually.
Yeah, well, any contract I get, yes. If it falls outside of the resolution, which has certain parameters, it gives them authority to authorize them themselves.
Yeah.
If it falls outside of that, then yes,
Okay.
I do approve.
If it's
Thank you.
under $5,000, the department head will initial it, saying they follow the resolution, we will skim it. If they doesn't appear to follow the resolution, we'll send it on the legal and get it straightened out if we catch it. If it is above 5, it requires legal approval in advance. So to get a PO, you actually have to have that, so it was handled before the PO.
Thank you.
Always is.
So, who made the motion to approve? Can I get a motion?
It's just docketing.
Docking? We only want a dock? Very good. Thank you, librarian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Y'all have another day.
Y'all are welcome.
You asked her how happy hours of your day.
Really? I appreciate that.
You did realize you lost your audience by doing that. Nobody cares at this point.
That's all right. Okay, so back to old
that was
business.
a third of the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back- So we're on, sub-item B, chronos.
Yeah, you need to bring us back.
Bring it back, yes, back in, we come back into motion, or back into rules, back in, yeah, rules back in.
Do you want a quick synopsis of the RFP and all the bids and the recommendation? Can I give it real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Chronos.
Let's just look at your, starting on page 13 is your actual RFQ. And just to highlight what it covers really quickly, on page 14, the bid covered 12 departments with 7 unique policies and all unique practices. If you look at our optional items, there's something called telestaff. Was never part of the private act, was never intended to be done by finance. It's done by EMS. At one time, they had an employee, Sam was their assistant. He was going to set this up because they wanted to use telestaff. Over time, Sam's left. They continue to use telestaff. It bleeds directly into Chronos, and we think it needs some configuration. Jay's asked us to help, but we don't have the staff or without training or bidding the expertise right now. That's one reason I recommended this, but looking at the cost as we go down through it, I think this right here is not the best option, but I'll go through that right now as just part of the background. They've asked for our help, but we don't have the staffing to handle the additional program or the expertise at this point, but we do need to get it, and the EMS wants to continue to use telestaff, and talking to Jay, he thinks it needs some configuration improvement, just like us when it was originally set up. It was something we never anticipated taking on at this point, I think. We need to find somebody to provide assistance or take it on with the EMS because it is causing them issues. Or it's going to cause more issues in the future. That's option 1. And number 2 is actually working on the exports with us. To give you a kind of synopsis where right now the sheriff, your biggest department, is to the point of it's ready for export. What's going on right now is because they've done it another way for many years. They're practicing doing it, trying to get faster and faster on the tie-off, so it's more into change management. The technological features are all there for direct upload for the Sheriff's Department. The only concern we got with EMS is the configuration of telestaff before we started direct upload with them. So your largest departments were to the point of almost direct complete automation, very few things, and one of them that we do need to understand, we get the systems working and you've got a department of 500 people that's done it away for a long time, we need change management, because if they sign off on their time sheets wrong, we export it up wrong, they get paid wrong. So that's where we're at right now. That's why they're still doing the manual sheets and there's issues. We've been doing it for several months. They're still practicing. They're getting better. And your current sheriff is very supportive of it. He's been trying to get them to do it. But we're saying we're steering 400 people, and several of them have been there for many years doing it a totally different way. But we're hoping in the next 4, 5, 6 months of practice, I know that sounds like a long time, to have them ready to do it all the way through. But they're setting their processes and they're working on it.
Can I ask you with the Sheriff's Department, can you report back to us, like in November, how they're doing? Or can you just let us know as we go forward how they're doing?
Why don't we invite, we're going to keep working, why don't we see if we can invite the sheriff down to talk to us, see where they're at. That way, if we're about ready to go forward, if there's additional time needed for practice, and because the way it works on Crohn's, it should be employee signs off, supervisor signs off, their payroll signs off. The problem being, if they don't catch them wrong, and we look at it because we can't look at everything, if it's signed off wrong or not timely enough, then you'll get the wrong data in, because they've got to adjust their time sheets for leave, and we can leave.
I think that would be excellent, to invite him and then give us an idea, y'all can work together.
We'll reach out to him the next couple of days and see if he wants to come down and discuss anything that may be helpful with it, yeah, because it's a big project, change management is. The next thing is, the one thing that we did want, because your 2012 Act, one of the overriding things of even having this system is to make sure we're wage and hour compliant. I have an understanding of wage and hour, it's not my expertise, I don't do it every day. We have some very unusual practices. One thing we didn't want bid in here is any of the bidders could go by and verify that all of our practices and policies, as far as they can understand, does follow Fair Labor Standards Act, because these are the specialists. That kind of gives you the synopsis of the real highlights. You have several pages, but that's your most important highlights. Going to page 29, we have several bids, and I can tell you the problems with each bid. Give everybody time to get there. The first one is surety systems. We've worked with surety systems before. If we did work with surety systems, we want them to be guaranteed. They did do a guaranteed maximum price of $330,000. And let's understand right now something very important. About 80% of the work's left, so these people are bidding on the last 20% for 20% of the work. One thing that's required is for every office to be 100% participant with it, or they charge us additional. So if they come in and they run into difficulties because data is not supplied timely, not supplied, or other difficulties are going to add costs. So some of these costs could very well double based on every one of them qualified based on that. Number one, surety system, they did not bid on telestaff. So that leaves us back to use another bidder, or if it's under 25 to use somebody, or go back and rebid it again. We allow the options, but right now, looking at it, telestaff would be one of my high priorities because it's something we've never been involved in and we have the least amount of knowledge about. Who's got the most configuration. Number two is the Frost Group. If you go back to their bid, their email, they did question why they were so low. If they had a complete understanding, going back through their bid, looking for a number of rules and some of the responses, we understand, it's our strong belief there's not a meeting of the mind, and that's not really a valid bid. We think it's probably a good group, but they didn't understand what they were exactly bidding on. The next one, we think, pretty much covers everything. It's $665,000. But they do have a qualification that basically everybody has to be fully cooperating with us. So if we run into any difficulties, you get charged extra. So we're thinking that $665 is based upon, they're getting the guaranteed maximum based upon everything supplied to them as should be. So if somebody delays them significantly, don't provide them data, then they're going to charge you extra still, even under the guaranteed maximum.
So, I mean, just understanding the process here. So why would we have somebody or an area not complying with this? Why would that create more cost for us, I guess?
If somebody wouldn't work with them, if there's difficulties they encounter getting data, getting policy.
Why would somebody not work with them?
I'm not saying they won't, but I'm saying general understanding of these prices. So, and I'm going to point out for one reason, if we come in with a guaranteed maximum, we've got to understand if we run into extreme difficulties, it's not going to be a guaranteed maximum. And I'm not saying nobody would have that, but they could encounter other difficulties such as Fair Labor Standards issues or disagreements about it. So this group may think it's a problem, the department head may not, and they're going to disagree strongly. We may get legal involved. If we spend excessive amount of time, they very well could argue that there's additional costs.
So that doesn't include any of those variances.
No, it's based on things pretty
And if you had a department head or two that really didn't understand or maybe pushed back on what we were trying to do we have an idea on how much that would cost us?
We have no idea, but
Could we put a floor on that or a ceiling on that?
we can talk to them about this guaranteed maximum and a little bit closer, but right now, when I get to the end, I'm probably not going to recommend running with any of these, and I can kind of tell you why I think we've got probably a better option.
I would assume there are probably 70 people here, and they haven't worked for 30 days, and if it takes longer, they're going to have to pay for hotels and expenses and travel.
A lot of Zoom, because right now we allow for Zoom, because not allowing for Zoom in the model will exponentially increase your
So
cost.
these are actually.
It allows it to be in person and virtual too, yeah. Anytime I bid these in the past, we can bid them and force them the other way, but they're going to increase your cost significantly. Yep. And then the next one's Jubilant LLC. I'm sorry, which one did I skip?
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, the big one is Jubilant. The issue I have with them is two. They will not verify Fair Labor Standards Act. That was a disclaimer. That's when they took exception. They do have a guarantee maximum of 406, and they also did not bid on the actual important part, which is telestaff. So I think they're pretty much out. At least two of the bidders out of the four is completely out. We get on to the next page. Avro did not bid a maximum, and they did not bid an amount on option 1 and 2. They said to be determined. They would not give us a price. So they're thinking that the configuration of the telestaff may be more entailed than they really think. And then the next one is Predictive HR. They bid $121 for the base, but did not give a maximum bid, and did no bid on telestaff, and they said that they actually could not do telestaff. They're not capable. Some of them said they could do it, but just needed more information. These weren't capable. So running back down through it, a couple of thoughts come to my mind, and this is one of them. Before we even go forward with any bids, is right now option. Which one option is it? Option C is the discussion of the holdbacks. Any of these you do with any of these configurations, the holdbacks are going to make it much more difficult to it's dealt with. Number two, honestly, I think we could take the employee that was discussed, half purchasing and half payroll, scoot them over to payroll, rebid this to mainly handle the telestaff and a few of the other items we need, and exponentially decrease the cost on a needs basis. So I think basically the employees half and half, move them over and hire consultants and work with their staff. I think we could take the cost down to probably way under below the $100,000. I think it's going to be a little slower of a walk, but I think you may need that anyway, because as we're looking right now, we're all wanting to move quickly. But for instance, the sheriff's department is a good example. The chief deputy is very much wanting to work with us. His people are wanting to work with us. The technology's out there now, but there's still change management because there's so many people and new people. So there's something to think about there. If we move at the speed of light, all the people have to move with us, and they have to be able to sign off and get used to doing it. So I think slow walking it and using internal staff and rebidding this to a much lower contract would be your best option right now. But by doing that, we're going to take away, I think we need to slow walk some of the purchasing and other stuff and just focus down on payroll. I think we need to focus on one area the most. Would save us a lot of money and get you the best bang, just my opinion.
So, Greg, let me ask you, what is the budget set aside? How much do we have?
$100,000, which is additional estimate. $100,000 somewhere to come in. The thing is, we've got about 80% of the work done. So this is what these folks think it's going to take to complete it. We think by rebidding it for mainly deal with the telestaff, reconfiguring it through there, ECC when we get to those, and then all the others we do internally to see if we need their help, we can take a lot of that cost out. But the thing it's going to take is more help, and I think one way to do it is to slow down on the purchasing, move that half person over into payroll, focus completely on it, because when we get the system configured, there's a lot more work during implementation. We can take that resource back to purchasing at some other later date. We can divide it back over. You're going to have a lower bid. We're going to have more internal understanding of what's going on, because if we use consultants to do it very quickly, we're going to write SOPs, but the same thing we got right now, we move very quickly. You've got one or two members of staff trained, and you're cross-training, and that's what we're running into a lot too.
So basically, what you're looking at is train the trainers, and then the trainers then go to each one of the.
That's with any of them that we do. We're talking about the configuration. The training's not going to be as big of an issue, because if we work configuring it with them, a lot of training happens then. When you're going to be testing with these people, setting up stuff, so they're going to have 2 or 3 people that's going to learn a lot about the system. Just like Bravo knows a fair amount over in, where's that her name now? It's Bravo. Yeah. Over in the sheriff's department, she knows a fair amount because she worked some with the configuration. Well, but she's worked since then, but she's learned a lot about it. But Tammy worked at the time with configuration. So the thing is, there's 2 ways. If we go the one way, it's going to be very expensive. It's going to be a very push on your departments. And we can't sit there after deployment with change management, because it's going to become cost prohibitive quickly. Like, if we were going to sit with the sheriff's department this long with another entity, we would have ran up millions of dollars at this point. I think your best one is to kind of just focus it down internally, bid a much smaller contract, and kind of grab the ones. One, we're pretty far on the sheriff, configure telestaff and EMS back where it should be. Go in here, and we have the clerk of master and the county clerk already. Let's do those folks internally. Talk to ECC and see where they're at, and if they're ready, we want to hire somebody externally to help. And then, for instance, Toby said when we had everything smoothed out, he was started exploring his, because he's one of the next biggest departments. And his people works 4-10. So his aren't as, like ECC, for instance, has 24-hour shifts that ends at noon. Toby has a little more defined schedule, so his won't be anywhere like EMS or ECC, and he won't have this advanced timekeeping system, which is something that we've worked very little with.
Let me go back to where you're getting that FTE or that employee, that half. Does that then put compression on the payroll team?
Here's what we're doing. Right now, we have a new position you added for half payroll, half purchasing. We picked up most of Toby's bids, if not all, this past year, and I think he wants to continue talking to Toby. Our existing AP department was able to, because we got a pretty efficient group, was able to absorb that. So we have this half person. We haven't been able to fill it yet, because the last payroll person we had stayed for 1 month and left for $10,000 more. So we kind of have a payroll payment issue there. The person left this position right now has not been filled, but we have things backlogging. So my thought process is slow down on the other purchasing, like the POs, take that person solely over into payroll to help with the implementation and the payroll. We do a much smaller bid where we get a lot of less assistance, but some assistance with the things we need, the technical help from the consultant to kick down the cost. And then, for a better word, slow walk it. Spend our Ned and the other resource and these consultants predominantly start with fixing telestaff and EMS to the point where, just like sheriff, we can upload those folks, and it's going to take a lot of stress off, and we have 2 uploaded large departments. And then after that, go ahead and all these miscellaneous, if we get the holdback handled, upload all those folks, and then after that, we go back and we focus on 2 bigger departments with these consultants, helping some with ECC because they're quite complex, and then going on to their next biggest department, highway, and work with Toby. And then after that, trying to grab the ones that are very much like talk to the judges, and the rest of them are left, and then any outliers that don't want to participate at that point, let them come back to the committee, and you guys work it out.
So,
kind of my thought process. But
with that, you'll still be able to help Toby with his POs, even with what you're planning?
Yes, but we couldn't do his POs too, because that's going to take, and we wouldn't be going in and doing like we were going to do a contract module and stuff. We can kind of slow that onto the back burner and push all the resources into payroll. I think it's going to save the county money, and in the long run get you a better result, because if we do it at the speed of light with a
contract like this, two things, our internal people aren't gonna have as much knowledge and be able to pass it on and train them. And number two, just like the sheriff, we figured out even if it's technologically perfect, you've got humans involved and they've got to sign off on correct timesheets. If they sign off on wrong timesheets, we pay them wrong. We only got one or two choices. Run special payrolls that are very problematic and cause you all kind of problems, extra staff hours, or make these poor people wait for another 2 weeks. That's what you really run into. So, for instance, we do the upload to the sheriff and they do their best effort and it's messed up and they get over and underpaid. We're going to try to pay a special payroll, which is basically doing a whole other set of payrolls. And then for the ones that are overpaid, we're going to adjust on the next payroll, which is making your next payroll super overly complex. So when we do those uploads, we want them as good as possible for several reasons. Plus, you may have some that leave and don't have any leave that we overpay in the terms. At that point, we can ask them back to pay us, we adjust the W-2s and go through all that. Or if they don't pay us back, then we've got to go to legal and find out is it not feasible to go after them, we just eat the cost. That's another reason not to move really fast.
Toby, you have your representative big department. Does it sound good to you?
It's just a work in progress. That's what me and David have talked about for several months. We've been working very hard to work through the process of the close and getting that worked out. And in our conversations about it, it's just, for me, taking one thing at a time really works well with the Chronos is getting this going. And then I said, you work with the other offices. I said, you get them squared away, you're going to be good with me too. Because I feel like once that happens, I don't think it's going to be a big deal at all.
The other thing to realize is that Toby last year had us bid all of his bids, and talking to him, he's planning to do that, and that was all voluntary.
Yeah. No, I just want to make sure that you're.
The only thing we ran into is the vendors weren't used to the more complicated RFP to protect the county, and that's the only, I think, hiccup we ran into with Toby, is the vendors had a little more questions, and we were reworking on his, the RFP itself. They had a lot less Judy did a very, not bad mouthing Judy, she did a very small RFP without a lot of details, which is very good for bidding, but if you ever run into problems, it's like we can tell you, it's very vague who's got what. With that big change, I was being Toby growth for it because there's quite a bit of change, but it went relatively smoothly. I don't think there was really any problems that I can recall, unless Toby's got one that we ran into.
And, Mr. Law Director.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Long brought up that some of these bids didn't include the fair labor standards and stuff. Can you take that on in your office, or can you address that? I mean, is that something we can push out to vendors, or can our law office take that and look through and see if we're meeting our labor standards? I mean, that was one of the things he said.
I don't know how much control I have over a third-party vendor coming in and.
Well, I think it's in our policy, and maybe you can address it, because I'm hearing you say that we're.
Okay, if you look at one of the big losses for service providers, and the county's predominantly a service provider, 85+%, 90% salaries, is fair labor standards. You've got a lot of hourly employees, people pay them wrong. I went to many classes, look at them. It can get quite convoluted. I have a good understanding. Eric's good. The problem being is two things. One, we've both got limited resources. That's why I had it in here.
Right.
And number two, no matter how well we look at it, a set of eyes will never hurt because you'll be challenged on a lot of crazy stuff, and sometimes it's part of the
Can we get somebody, a consultant just for that piece like we did in the insurance?
Well, I think right now we bid these sections I mentioned, and
Are they going to pick it up?
and then when we get down here, we can bid those. And since our attorneys, probably maybe what we end up using, it can fall back under professional services. This I think we need to bid because I don't think it 100% falls under professional services.
Right.
I think if we split the legal portion out and look at it at a later time.
And I'm just asking if it was something we could do in-house. That's the answer I'm wanting.
Part of it, but I think it's the same issue. His staff and hours is so stretched so thin. I think it would be better to outsource, plus we want somebody that specializes in that in every day. I have a good understanding of several classes over the years. We even got the book upstairs, especially. Eric has a good understanding, Steve does. But the same thing, it's usually better to use somebody that specializes, plus if it's something you don't do regularly, and you're already pushing a large project, it's usually better to outsource that.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm just, at what point would we
Well,
outsource it?
if it was, I'm looking at more as an auditing piece, and you're gonna really would rather have a third-party auditor.
I'm good with that.
given you some sort of opinion letter.
Is that separate from what, because I didn't hear, I
It
mean, I
was,
heard you
it was
say
in this bid,
it's in the bid, but we're not going.
my thought process now is to break it out and deal with those parts. When we get to where we've got the majority in, we go out with probably a firm that specializes in, maybe even completely legal firm, whichever way, or an HR firm, to ask them to actually come in and look at the system completely. Because right now, it's like we occasionally run into employees and we don't understand the employee's duties, and somebody will ask us a question, I'm like, no, those aren't exempt, or they can't follow the 28-day cycle. And we ran into a few of those, and we fixed them and retrofitted and fixed them properly. But it's the same thing. You've got 1,000+ employees per payroll and many, many unique positions. And we looked at them through a salary survey. When we originally started Kronos, we had them go back and evaluate several of these positions, but things have changed significantly over the years. And we just know what we know. So if somebody's when we're done, I think we need to.
When we're done, that's the answer. So once it's, everybody's implemented?
Materially done. We're like when we have the sheriff uploading, EMS uploading, probably ECC, all these other ones uploading, and maybe Toby's in there. At that point, get a interim review, because we think we're materially compliant, but we just need to verify. And then, at your final, I think, get a smaller review and review everything, see if we think all the rules are, because your number one risk of loss, one of the large ones, is wage and hour non-compliance. Costs a lot of money.
Thank you. My only question was in-house, and the answer is no, we'll out, and when, after we get these three big pieces in, then we'll do it.
I think if we shrink this down, we're gonna be funneling every resource we can into there. And when we have questions, they usually bring it to me, I research it. If I have any inkling of the question, I usually go to them, they research it. I think we almost always, if not always, have came up with the same answer, but we do spend a lot of time looking at wage and hour. We have several questions. I was about, used to have several questions a week, and it's kind of calmed down. And they kind of come in spurts. I'll have several a week, and then I may not have one for a month. I haven't had one for a month or two now, 3. I may have 3 or 4 or 5 one week. What I do is I usually research it. About the questions I come to legal, they research it. Occasionally we have some that we're all scratching our head, but we can usually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, most of the time we have to deal with, there's some unique twist to it. It's just something you can't apply a standard to.
And we recommend them not doing. It's usually what we're in. It's like one of them's dual, working in 2 different departments in the county, and ends up getting combined, and then you end up with, there's 3 or 4 ways you can calculate overtime. You gotta be super careful. We can do it through Kronos. A lot of the people run Kronos part on ours, so we're afraid that it'll be missing what we recommend in the past is using your highest rate as overtime rate, period. Which is more expensive on the county, but because some of them's in Kronos, some's not, some's over here, if they don't use the correct average rate, or then we're underpaying them, it's a bigger issue than overpaying slightly. And that's being on one system at the end of the day will help with that too. Because we got multiple, but I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Item C?
So my recommendation on item B is not to go with any of these and to bid a smaller contract for what we need and go ahead and put in that $100,000 and get ready to move forward. But we've actually got payroll items on C, so that may be something I ask for a motion on the end.
So we have an item on new business at the end for payroll items, item C on the back page. We can round it all up then, or we can make a vote now. Would you like to readdress it all in roundup?
I think it's probably best to readdress all the changes in roundup, because make sure everybody's fine with the direction. Because if it's you guys' county, that's which direction we're moving.
Do you have the specifications that you want as far as?
What we'll do is we'll go ahead, if you guys approve it, we'll reiterate them at the end, the ones we're going to try to do, and we'll go ahead and rebid that. If you guys are fine with the changes and just start moving that direction before the next meeting, then we're going to drop the bid award and go ahead and start moving down the road. Because right now, as I was saying, I got the vacant position because of the employee leaving for a much higher salary. What we'll end up doing is immediately advertising to a payroll position versus the other one if you guys approve it today. Because the longer we sit on it, the more it's not going to go anywhere.
How many openings do you have?
I have 2 right now. And generally ours are due to 1 to 2 things, is we can't find the person we need, or higher salaries. We're losing a lot of people to higher salaries. I think our office is becoming a training ground for other offices is what's happening, or other entities.
Just to be clear,
It's
we're
bad now.
for foregoing all of these?
I think right now my recommendation is to reject all bids, and I mean, you may want to go ahead and approve that now and discuss the direction to go later.
So I looked through the bids, and I see some of the items that Mr. Long is pointing out, and I'd make a motion to reject these contracts and these bids and go looking for other options. All in favor? Motion passes. We move on to item C. So we're going to have C, information for employees who are paid currently. So we have items 1 and 2 under this. Do you want to discuss all of that together, and then we can, would you go?
Item 1 is the old one, so it's no longer pertinent because, you know, we've crossed the fiscal year and the time's gone, salaries are wrong. So I passed out a new one, and it's got the total on page 185, and I can discuss some potential options, and I've got a calendar here to see the way you guys would want to look at it. If you went by and moved everybody that did not have a holdback, including exempt department heads, exempt non-department heads, and all your hourly employees, the total would be a little over $305,000. Your hourly employees, you most definitely need to move to a holdback because you count them on hourly. Your exempt department heads, because they earn leave, you know, once a month, you could, if we made multiple payroll cycles, pay them on the 15th and the 30th and move their payroll. But I don't know how everybody feels about that, and I can kind of show you that would include like me, Eric, Josh, Marshall, the EMS director. Those are your exempt department head. Now your officials are paid an annual salary. We pay them 26 times a year, and that's why we have the one in the back. Even though they're paid a finite amount during the year, there's no accruals or anything. So what you got for this $305,000, I've got a calendar here, and I can kind of show you what some possible options are. If you go back to the 2 pages from the back,
What month are you on?
I'm sorry, 2 pages in the back from the June 2025, and I can kind of show you. You've got this sheet. If you just flat out move all your departments, it's still not going to fix some things. So like this past weekend, I got a text about commissions pay. It's always the second payroll with the employees, but it's very confusing because it moves all over the place. The officials are paid 26 times, but they're actually an annual salary, so they may be over or underpaid based when they leave office, or if they pass away, or resign, or whatever happens, their pay will be off too. And then your hourly, you definitely need on a 2-week cycle because you pay them overtime on a weekly cycle. So you need to line up weekly or bi-weekly one, and bi-weekly is usually cheaper.
That's basically what this is, because there's another one where it's 3 1 month, so it's.
Right, you get paid every week. You get paid bi-weekly. But here's some of your options. One's move everything for 305, or number 2, if you look on June 25th, you have a payday on the 19th. That is your final pay day for the fiscal year. All of your department heads that do not have a holdback on that 19th, if you look, they're paid through the 20th, okay? So that means they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to the 30th they haven't been paid for. What you could do that would take $33,000 out of that, and if you did the exempt non-department, the same, another 18, which would bring you down to 253. What you could do is pay all, like 19, on the 19th to the 20th, like usual. Come back and pay your department heads for the remaining days of the year on the 30th, which would be 1, 2, 3, a small payroll of 11, and then let them wait to get paid the next time on the 15th and the 30th of each month. Because they are exempt and they do earn sick, vacation, comp. That would save you some money and still get everybody where they've got a holdback.
I was looking in here.
Possibility.
I know I saw the schedule for the time worked, not the time paid, but
it's in the very back, yeah.
How far back?
It's in the very back, and I can kind of go through the schedules to kind of show you what the schedules are.
I like the idea of cleaning up some of the pages.
Well, that's going to be hard because of wage and hour, but let's talk. I can kind of show you what we're talking about. What page is that?
306.
Okay. There's a schedule on page 307. Yeah, that's your payroll schedule. Now, let me explain that. We'll go through the calendar,
That's my eyes from.
and I can explain to you this long grid.
So this is, I would like to see more so than the money, this thing clean up.
So let's talk about the payroll that happened today. Okay, so let's go over to September, and I'll explain when each one of those cycles end, and then you'll see what we mean by convoluted. And it's developed over many years, so if we go back 3 pages, it'll be September. Today, the 26th, is payday. You can see it's marked, okay? For the employees, we're talking about no holdback, but if you look at this sheet, it's all these down here, other than the elected officials, it's all these departments to the left. That's why they're not listed. There's no holdback, okay? That's your no holdback employees. What the employees are paid for today, the 26th, goes from the 14th through the 27th for one of the groups, for the full-time employees, for most of them, okay? This same payroll today for part-times for that same group.
Which one?
I'm just going to read you your groups, that way you don't have to keep up with the lines. So for the 27th, if you just go with these with no holdbacks for your full-time only, it's from the 14th through the 27th, you're paid today for that, okay?
So that group is?
But the same group, for the part-time, you're paying them for the 7th through the 20th. So that's that same department. So if you're a department head, you got your part-time with holdbacks, yours without, okay? Then we go over to EMS for the same payroll period. They're being paid for the 16th, the 9th. I'm on the wrong one.
Is that the 9/6?
6, I'm sorry, yes, ma'am. 9/6, I'm getting on the wrong one. I've even got it marked here. 9/6 through the 19th is for the EMS being paid today. So they got a holdback.
The 19th.
The next one's ECC, and these are all midnight except for the next one. Your next one for this pay period is from 9/7 to 9/20, and that's ECC, and it ends on noon on the 20th. So it doesn't end on midnight.
No, it ends on noon on the 21st.
Noon on the 20th.
11:59 a.m. on the 21st.
Which is the 20th, the last second, noon.
Noon on the
Right. So it's labeled confusing, but it's 11:59 will still be noon on the 20th, I guess. It's confusing on the noon when you do that. The next one's your sheriff's department. They go from 9/9 to 9/22 for all their employees. Okay. Health department goes from 9/7 to 9/20. Trustee's office is totally different from everybody else. Again, they go from 9/16 to 9/29, paid on 9/26. Commissioners for 9/1 through 9/30 gets paid on the 26th. Your DTF for July 1 through September 30th, because they get paid quarterly, except for one of their employees, gets paid today also. And then your elected officials are divided into 26, so today they may be over or underpaid either direction. We don't know. So we don't know which way you guys are going. We just know you get paid every 2 weeks. So if we know you're leaving office because, for instance, when the assessor came in, it's not a problem. His last check we shorted over, and we shorted his check about a week. I think he's overpaid. But like when the sheriff passes away, or if you decide, hey, I want to move out of my district, or I want to move to Florida, I won the lottery, and I'm tired of dealing with this, I'm going to move to Florida, or whatever, then you're over or underpaid. And I brought this to the committee years ago, so my point is if we have an official pass away, there's not a prayer I'm recovering that fund, I'm just going to report it. I mean, and I've told everybody that. We've had it happen 3 times now. I think it was overpayment every time. So that's just to kind of give you, that's why I'm saying, right now you do have a very convoluted payroll cycle, paying these people advanced and behind. These implementations are very complicated and it's just going to make it worse, and it's not going to get better the longer we sit here and the bigger the county gets. Right now, you've got about 140, 180 without the holdbacks. So my body, I don't say which way I prefer to do, but I just highly recommend that we get some type of holdback on our employees. And technically, on the department heads, if we did what I'm saying, they'll get paid on the 15th and the 30th. For that time, there won't be a holdback, but they don't get paid hourly. So you may occasionally lose a day or two if they don't have sick or vacation time, but that would be the only drawback. And that doesn't address the elected official. That's a whole different animal.
Is there any way we can clean any of this up also?
All of your department heads have a right to adopt their policy. If you do the whole back and we set them on Chronos, it's going to make it much better. It's still going to require multiple imports because they end on different days.
Do they all know that this is what it looks like behind the scenes?
No, I mean, that's really not very concerning. It kind of developed this way over many years. And the county was much smaller many years ago, so it wasn't really as pervasive as it is now. The county's grown. No, I doubt that anybody really realizes it's quite that convoluted.
Just like anybody else's eyes crossed.
My dogs, I can't,
Makes more sense from an implementation delays.
Yeah.
Well, there's two things, implementation delays. If you look at this contract, we've been doing flood resources and slow walking and working with people. If you bid it as a fast-moving contract, it's very expensive. We've got 80% of it done, and we're still thinking if you run into significant difficulties, you're looking at $600,000 to complete Chronos One. We've already done like the ERP, the Munis portion's done. It just really needs time where I can sit with the payroll manager and some of this stuff and look at some of, it needs some refinement, but it's kind of like finding time right now. To give up some time to find time, I guess is the best word. But
while we're addressing holdbacks and stuff, is there any way we could have discussions with each department head and like do some short and long pay schedules to try and get some things lined up? I mean, once it's corrected, then going into the future, things are going to look a lot better.
If you did that, I would say one thing. If we change somebody's weekly payroll cycle, if there's any possibility they would have earned overtime, we double give it to them and we document it. Because your big thing is you earn overtime, other than the sheriff, which is on a tour of duty, on a weekly cycle. If you change any of them, the one I would highly recommend you don't touch is two of them. That is your sheriff's department, your EMS. Your sheriff's department has people on a tour of duty, 28-day cycle, and people that aren't. Your EMS has employees that earn, some of them, 50% or more of their annual take-home is overtime alone, because they work a lot of hours. So if you start messing with that, we're going to have to be super careful to give it on their favor and document that very well. Because we don't want the employees to get mad, make a complaint, they audit us and figure out we inadvertently miscalculated, then they're going to go extrapolate and go deeper and deeper into our system. And I think we've done it correct, but even if you've done it correct, you're going to spend a lot of time proving you're correct. And we don't want to spend $100,000 of staff hours proving we're correct. So I would say your best bet as a county would be to fix the holdbacks, and even though it's very convoluted, get everybody into Chronos and leave all these cycles.
And hope it never breaks.
Well, if you get everybody trained, we write SOPs, and you can talk about them. Like I hear there was no SOPs really, very few small ones. So we have standard operating procedures for everything. We're in the process if we've just changed things. So we have standard operating procedures. The state required internal controls, they're embedded in our standard operating procedures. So we have them for, what's one of the really simple things, Beth, that almost sounds ridiculous, ordering supplies from the office. I think I have one for that out there. We have them almost down to the ridiculous because of a couple of things. One, in the modern day, if you looked at the studies, the average turnover time of an employee now is 3.5 years. You can't even completely train them. So if I had to put an employee there to completely train somebody every time without standard operating procedures, we're non-functional. A lot of times now we give you less training because of standard operating procedures. We give them to you, a little training, and we check the checkpoints, but you receive significantly less training. And that's another reason it's imperative. We have a lot of people that have finance degrees in our office. There's a reason we can't train them, don't have time to train them, and we can't train them for 4-year degrees. But that's kind of but right now your biggest holdback of ever being able to successfully run an automated system as you grow bigger and bigger over time is these lack of holdbacks is your biggest problem. The cycles cause extra exports which are not significant is the holdback by any means. We export to Chronos but they have different time periods. They cause multiple they don't anymore. We got that deal.
No, because it goes by pay period.
So the period's
fine. Chronos knows what the pay period is.
So we got it. As long as we line the pay period.
It's just the sheriff's office has multiple because of their 28 days.
Oh, okay. So the rest of them were okay. It's just the sheriff, no matter what, we're going to have because they have 28-day cycles and non-28 days. So really, if we get Chronos working, changing's gonna be a moot point. It really other than holdbacks, the big issue. So the different cycles we can put in, we can program into the Chronos now.
Okay. I like the idea of at least simplifying it by moving the elected officials to that first item that you were talking about,
Well, that was exempt department heads.
right, exempt department heads.
So the question is
And
that the way you guys want to do? The first number is just to give everybody the week and basically move you to a holdback automatically with everybody that'll have one. The next one down, if you take your exempt, just department heads that you pay on the 19th, pay them whatever time they have left for the rest of the year, and then start paying them on the 15th and 30th and do a second cycle. The third, that's a 271. If you do that with department heads and exempt employees, such as the assistant county attorney, the engineer, and there's a few other ones out there. I think there's not a whole lot of them. That would bring you down to 253. The only reason I say that you can't, that it's not a big problem as hourly, your hourly employees earn comp time made into overtime. These employees don't earn comp or overtime. They only earn leave that they use if they're not working 40 hours a week. So really they're on a monthly cycle anyway. So the only risk you've ever got is because we're paying on the 15th and 30th, is on the 15th or 13th, 14th, 15th, those few days there, they could technically get overpaid if they don't have any leave. That's your only real risk. But it saves you money now. And will the department heads like as much? I don't know. They're going to get this earlier paycheck here, but they're going to have a bigger gap to their next paycheck, so I don't know. And then instead of having 26 payrolls next year, they have 24, they're making the same annual salary, so they get more per paycheck. Don't know, some like it, some won't.
So are you saying move the department heads to 15th, 30th, leave employees 2 weeks?
Have 2 pay cycles.
Leave county officials 2 weeks?
I think probably you need to move your county officials to twice a month also, because you won't have the over and under payment. The only issue I run into them is they get paid like, when we pay the county officials on the 19th, it's the last pay of the year, we pay them all the way through the 30th. So if we paid them there and we went into the 15th and the 30th, they wouldn't get paid their first time until the 15th. Now their check's going to be bigger because we're just going to divide it by 24, but they've got this bigger gap. So the question is to have kind of fixed that the first time. If you decide to do that, instead of making the officials wait that big of a time, we can divide their first paycheck in half and pay them on the 7th and 15th. That's more payrolls, but it may help alleviate them for this big gap.
And just to clarify for anybody watching the video, everybody gets their pay. We're not.
Nobody's getting shorted pay.
Nobody's getting shorted
pay. It's a
pay.
question of timing difference.
Did you say the 7th and the 15th?
No, I'm saying like the officials, if you look at those folks, I'm sorry, did I say that? I meant the first time, yes. July, yes ma'am, yes sir. So let's just look back at June again. So if you look at June, and this, you can see what I'm talking about. The last payroll is on the 19th. So like the people that get paid their number of days, all department heads, other elected officials get paid on number of days. We always have, they don't earn comp. So any of your department heads, even without the holdback, would have the 23rd, 4th, 5th, 26th, 27th, 30th, we could pay them on the 30th. There's going to be a gap to the 15th, but we divide it in 24. Your biggest problem is your elected officials. They get paid on the 19th, they have no accruals. So they wouldn't get paid again until the 15th, which is a pretty big gap. And the 15th and 30th is regular, so two things, the 15th and 30th, their payroll is going to be bigger because we're only divided by 20, but you have that big gap that they may or may not plan on the way to help maybe soften that if that's what you decide to do as a group. And it's a little more investment, not that much. We pay them that particular month, we pay them on the 7th and the 15th. We divide their first paycheck in half and give them half of the month, 7th, 15th, and then go on that cycle. They make it easier on elected officials too.
Okay, I've got to go, but I want to make a couple quick comments on this. So you think this is the best way to do it?
I think it's, number one, it's the easiest way to do it, the 305. The cheapest on the taxpayers is to do the 253 for the hourly employees. Everybody else move them to the 15th or the 30th. And then if the elected officials are okay with it, moving theirs to the 15th and the 30th. And because there's such a gap on the elected officials, their first 15th of July, split their check in half and pay them the 7th and the 15th, that way they can get their money earlier. Kind of alleviates part of that wait.
I would like to make a motion to defer this for 1 month.
Okay.
And just the opportunity to talk to the department heads and talk to the officials and get buy-in from them on this. And then if you think this is best, you know, we'll try to sell it to them. And, I mean, I think it works okay, you just have to budget. And so, you know, but I would like to talk, before we push it on our department heads and push it on other officers, I'd like to talk to them first. So, that's my motion.
Can you guys recommend that if he does that, also on the motion, ask the budget committee to defer it for 1 more month, because they did one vote on the 272 back to this committee. Those, can you just make a request of this committee for the budget committee?
Yeah, we can ask Matches, put it on old business.
Yeah.
So, I'll make a motion that we request the budget committee to defer this for another month.
Got a motion.
Or the budget committee.
I have a motion to defer this on the floor.
Okay.
Is there a second?
All in favor?
Payroll cycle. And yours is to request the budget committee to defer to.
Yeah, that's included in the motion. Thank you very much.
What now?
Appreciate it. You were under C too, weren't you?
Yes. Yes, I was to defer the payroll cycles. We actually handled that one.
With that, these numbers may change a bit.
People move in and out, so it may change a little bit.
What's the drop dead date for approving this before we're missed the next?
I think right now you need to, I would recommend let's try to do it before, what month are we in, September? Let's say January.
Okay.
My only reason to saying that is if we're going to, say John gets the buy-in and they're all fine and everybody moves forward, we still want to send an email out to everybody to make sure everybody's aware, hey, there's going to be a change in your payroll cycle at the end of June and July. It's a one-time change, plus it gives us time to make sure it goes all the way through the commission too.
Yeah,
So,
it's gotta get through
so if this is
next
September,
time.
I think you really need to have it out of this committee next month,
Mm-hmm.
into budget, into the commission, into budget and commission in November. That way we can notify everybody in December, give them 6 months heads up. If that's the way it's gonna go.
Are we feeling John? Are we gonna sense urgency on this?
And then another reason, dude, if it doesn't pass the commission, then you're kind of back to straw one.
So how do you think it's not proposed? I mean, we're just gonna go ask people, but you can,
Well, we gotta do something. Are you recalling this back because it was voted on and moved? So
I know.
I'm just like,
I mean, it's
from
just
a
right
parliamentary standpoint.
Thank you.
You may suspend the rules and ask him, I think, remember that?
You know, yeah.
You might
I
want to
think we've
suspend the
got to
rules.
do 1 or 2 of them to get it done. I'm kind of appreciative that we're doing it and it's not hindering the employees. We're taking it on ourselves to do the right thing here. That's the way I feel. I think the options here is just a little white noise. We just got to kind of figure that out and go with it.
Jimmy, let me tell you one thing about the way, that if the second proposal, John's bringing 2 things, your elected officials and your department heads are exempt, or your higher paid employees, y'all are people. The ones that you're proposing to give the money for didn't get ARPA, didn't get anything special, and your hourly paid employees by and large are your lower paid employees. So that kind of tells you your open employees aren't getting enriched by it, you're just moving their cycles.
Right.
Including like me and Eric and the road superintendent, well, none of us getting anything out of it.
Right.
It's really gonna help the day-to-day workers. And in the long term, as the county keeps growing, something needs to happen. You're at 1,000+ employees.
No.
And we need to automate this thing because it's only gonna get worse, staff's gonna get bigger. Some point, no matter how well we document, if you ever have wage and hour, you wanna be in Chronos and electronic. Because say if we do it almost 100% perfect, wage and hour ought to still be very expensive manually to get the documents out to wage and hour to look at in the amount of time. Exponentially expensive.
And it's getting more expensive. We have another $500,000 of salaries we're looking at, including from budget, which is gonna bring this amount up again.
It
The
would
sheriff,
do a-
yeah,
Sheriff wouldn't, because he's not gonna.
but it had IT.
The
in it.
assessor, IT, that's what brings us up a
So
little
it
bit.
just keeps moving, it's moving target. All right, thank you. So,
We need to vote on that, I think, though.
no, we did, the mayor motion, we second, we voted on. Item C, we've completed C, we move to D. Resolution for a completion of the 2012 Act. I'd like to just, hold this on old business, until we get it completed. Let's have a goal of getting it completed. Anybody have any comment on that at this time?
We could just leave it as an old business item for if that's what you request.
That's my request.
Drop it on perpetual.
What is completion?
When you completely have it done, like everybody's in Chronos, everything's on Munis, everything's, looking at the 2012 Act, you guys, the county bid off a complete ERP project, which is going to be the best for the county, but it's a big change for a fairly good sized entity, and there's a lot of, especially in the finance portion, there's change management big time in it.
Well, I mean, I know that's what we've been working toward, and I just want to make sure that was the only goals that we had in mind.
But I think right now,
That's our goal.
since somebody's worked here as a long as I think, personally, your biggest priority should be the getting the crime runs. It's got some just convoluted, issues going on right now.
And at one point, when we brought the private act, just to give you some idea about, in the beginning, way back when, it was like, we're going to get this done in 4 years, is what I understand. And that was even way back in 2005.
And we were moving, I worked a gazillion hours.
Well, it's 12, but we had some stuff in place. Did y'all have the 81?
We went from the 81 to the 12.
When you had the 81, it said they were going to get this all done in 4 years.
We had a consultant to help us, and we went in there and Municipal we ended up choosing, and they're okay now, but they had significant, their like trainers were terrible, and I went back to the consultant and they said they'd had the same feedback from a lot of clients we got into the time when they'd grown so much it was an issue. We spent, redid the GL, I mean, it was horrific. I bet me and you spent 100 hours here or some week.
So
It was
we'll just
awful.
leave this on old business so that we don't forget what we're going for.
David, I think in the previous meeting, when we were trying to plow through this, you had a project planning guide of some sort that you shared with this group. Even though we may hit credits first, can you continue to provide that, that monthly, where it will meet?
Do you mean amend it after the day?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that was a perfect tool for us to kind of monitor how this project is progressing.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Just today, because there's so many things in flux, just didn't really provide anything.
Thank you for that.
So we,
So I'm just
yeah, no, okay. New business, item A, purchasing issues. Do you want to give us a briefing on the purchase order exception report?
Basically, what we're providing you is just the final purchase order list for 2024, and a couple of issues I'll go, because if you look, there's one item 15 I approved, based upon basically we had to get the year closed in the commission and approve the projects. And then the last three we went ahead and ran through because we had to close the year and they were legit but didn't have POs, and I'll kind of go through exactly what happened. The first one was on, and as commissioners, you'll remember when let's go back here.
We're on page 186.
I'm sorry, 186, but yes, it's additional notes.
Oh, wait, it's in my packet, or is it in
I think it's page 186.
Yeah, I'm on there.
Yeah.
You said there's 3 more reviews.
Oh, yeah, but we haven't had, I'm sorry, there's 3 here. On page 186, if you look, the 6 from the bottom, and the bottom 3 is the 3 that have the information attached, and I'll go through the details on those. Because I went ahead and ran them through for a couple of reasons, and you can kind of read my emails. I think there was some misunderstanding. On page 191, if you look, and a lot of you commissioners remember, you appropriated $707,979.69 for several issues that popped up in the new courthouse/justice center, okay? We went ahead and we got a PO request for an expense that had basically already been signed off on, and it wasn't disclosed at the commission meeting not. So I kind of took issue with it. If you look on page 188, talking with legal, that it was a liability. It did run through the commission, even though I don't think it was their intent to approve already existing costs. I went ahead and run it through. Since I do have that on the list, it's something I approved, and it's technically past my number of approvals. I wanted to make sure you guys understood the whole situation of why I ran it through, if it does come back in audit. Basically, the commission approved it, but my only issue that came up was a PO exception because the service was already rendered before the PO, and it's my recollection there was never a discussion on the commission floor in the resolution about existing expense. I thought it was prospective expenses. Since it already says my approval, you guys can approve it or leave it because it's already ran through
Through the mayor's office, et cetera.
Yes, sir. There's been
So, I just wanna see how it fits with my schedule on 186, I'm trying to find that $707,000.
It's the six from the bottom is the $93,000. Basically, they had already rendered the services before a PO was obtained. I think they didn't do it on purpose, but they were getting approval through the, commission for all the expense and stuff, so I think they inadvertently had already done the expense for the PO, so it made an exception. I don't have a right to do a PO after the fact, except for one time a year, approved before it had already happened. So I took exception, but at the time, we had already, the commission approved the cost, and our understanding was if we didn't start moving, it was gonna cost us more money. They were existing liabilities under the understanding of apparent authority. So I went ahead and approved it, ran it through, but I wanted to make sure the committee was aware of my reasoning and what happened exactly.
So the items on page 186, you need us to approve these exceptions.
So that one, number 15 and number 18, 19, and 20. They don't say approve, but they were legitimate emergencies, and we have informed the department, and hopefully they'll do better. But they were all related to one instance. What happened was there was a lightning strike, and they went ahead and, maybe it was a lightning strike, wasn't it?
That's next, right?
Wasn't these lightning strikes too? Yes,
Okay.
there's a lightning strike, and they did the repair. We have a policy for emergency purchases, and it's attached, and this is how it works. If it's during normal business hours, you have an emergency, go ahead and fix your emergency, then get the stuff, and as quickly as possible get a PO, because we don't want to stop your emergency. If it's after hours, go ahead and do it, get a PO the next day as quickly as possible. Gives you 24, 40, whatever's reasonable. That they just didn't get a PO. Since it was an emergency, they just didn't think they had to have a PO, so they waited significantly past the 24, 48-hour mark. They followed the policy. I don't think there was anything willfully done. I just think they haven't read the policy well.
How long did they wait?
See if I noted that on that.
I think it's down here, right?
I've got my tag, but
I don't see the lightning on.
it's these right here, under this one right here.
It says an email from Ken Wiseman on 6:30.
Oh, that's another one you're looking at. Obviously, in the packet still.
There are two lightnings.
The other was on 6/24, the lightning strike was 6/16.
Yeah, so they waited about 8 days.
6/27.
Well, these next two look like they're the next day.
No, they were done like, they got the work done on the 16th, and they did them, yeah, it was about eight days. So they really waited about 8 days to get a PO.
So that's 19 and 20 look like they did submit the PO the day after.
Which one? No, the date on the top up here, column 24. And
Ron's looking at your spreadsheet.
And he's looking right here, he's saying, if you look at the 16th.
oh, that's the date of the actual purchase. They actually did on 6/16.
So 19 and 20 look like they would follow.
So the first one, 6/16, they waited 8 days.
186.
She's discussing.
No, that's the day of the purchase and repair and the day of the PO. The lightning strike was on 6/16.
Right.
Actual emergency was on 6/16.
Okay.
Right,
So
we
it's
actually,
not, you don't
well,
have
actually
24
ordered
hours from when you,
From
ordered.
it's from lightning strikes, clock starts under 6/16, and all these were.
If it's an emergency. The other thing is, if it's an emergency, can you really wait a week to buy something and then it be an emergency? Well, our reasoning for that, here's what you've got, and when I was audited, I had the same issue. We would have people that came in and said something was an emergency, but it was a week after something happened, they ordered it right. That's not an emergency, we would kick it out. So this one isn't that he waited more than 24, it's that they had a thing on 6/16, didn't do anything for 9 and 8 days later, and then called it an emergency. It should have been, they got the PO the same day, because if they had time, they had 8 days to wait anyway. So the emergency requirements only to allow you to handle something urgently. I mean, go ahead and handle it and then get a PO. Otherwise, the PO should be before the fact, because your PO does a couple of things. It guarantees you have a budget. We think you followed state law. It gives your vendor, if you send it to them, a guarantee of what they're getting and what's going on. So if you do it the other direction, the PO is basically worthless. It's a after the fact pushing papers.
So the message here is just try to get it done as timely as you can, and then
Get your PO, then we can come to it and make sure.
The training, I mean, do we need to just, maybe, there's a lot of new people, maybe y'all need to send out your,
It's on the website, and we send them screenshots every time, and where the policy's at, so they inform.
Isn't this kind of thing that he has that separate insurance policy for.
It involves that, yeah. That's the one we haven't got to yet, that's item, that's the one you've added, we've not got there yet. That's the item added, the beach is item, ECC.
So to summarize, we got 15, 18, 19.
This is a whole other issue, this is the other one here that we got added. So what I'm asking for is approval of these, and then Mr. Widener's is a whole different discussion, because there's still 3 pieces
So
on it.
I make a motion to group 15, 18, 19, 20 together for approval with the, I don't know if the right word, contingency that there's a plan to either, come up with a solution how this won't happen again, I guess, just some sort of.
We've sent them the
If I
policy, I
can-
mean,
I'll amend onto Colin's, motion to say maybe we can ask them for an action plan, and whether that's more training in their department or I think that might be the answer.
something
So
we can
if we could ask them, for an action plan, a corrective action plan, how this isn't gonna happen in the future.
here's the only thing I would say, we've already paid and ran these through, and it may be something you wanna look at for future ones, I ask for it, I ask
Future
for
sounds good.
for a prospective action plan.
Yeah,
On the
future,
because these are, so I know, asking them now, it's already been dealt with and paid for, so it really, like the one for this one, for instance, hasn't been paid, that may be, a
What we could
solution. Yeah.
Like something as easy as when there's an emergency, this person calls you as a, like.
Our policy allows for 1 error, it allows for a couple things, it allows for 1 error a year, and if I think it's just a reasonable error, I can approve you 1 a year, period. Number 2, we have a policy about you can't be more than a certain percent of repeal, I can approve those unlimited. If it looks like they got quotes and ran something, I may approve you 4 or 5 of those a year and they end up on here, it makes sense. If it comes in and it makes no sense of what you got, then it'll get down here,
So I'll withdraw my amendment. If you wanna withdraw that and restate your motion as group and approve these without, and then we'll.
Yeah, I would like to group and approve 15.
What are we grouping?
So, page 26, he's got a summary, of,
15, 18, 19, 20.
15, 18, 19, 20, which are all POs that were outside of, POs written after the purchase was made. Group and approve those.
I'll second. All in favor?
Now, hang on,
Yes.
does this include the action plan to correct?
I think that's
We'll
big
get to that in a moment.
prospective ones, that's the future ones, but this has already been handled. This is the other item we handed out from Mr. Widener, and it
Just
says
quickly,
on,
all in favor? Aye. I'm sorry.
I thought you was moving along, because you got a big agenda, I'm sorry. You've got-
No, we just didn't get a vote on it.
There's this one right here that says ECC on the front, it should be highlighted, of the 3, and it has an amount at the, going in here, $29,585, and let me explain the whole situation on this one. Back on 6/16, the ECC, one of the, out of lightning strike did some damage to some equipment. Mr. Wagner sent some emails about it. On 6/30, he did the repair. He came down to budget on 7/15 and told him what he had done and was requesting funds, but as I told Mr. Wagner at the time, this is a liability because you went ahead and did the repairs of prior fiscal year and it's going to run the budget. The budget said we just need to go ahead and pay it. Well, that's fine, but except this committee's the one that has to approve the PO exceptions. I told Mr. Wagner to go ahead and send it to our office. Well, he did not send the bill until today, and we have to close our books by August 31st, so we closed our books. So we've got a couple issues. One, these are not in our books, so we're going to have to go back and post them after the statutory deadline, force them in, and then number 2, he never, even after, he's asking for a PO exception today. So what I'm asking is for 2 things. We'll make you aware, one, we're going to go back even though our books are closed by August 31st. I plan to post this unless you guys object $29,000 back into last year. And number 2, it should have required a PO, but it didn't. So I think because of apparent authority of the county liability, but I'm not even really asking for PO because at this point it would be a moot point to do one. Making the committee aware and ask for direction, and my request is just to go ahead and post him the last year and go ahead and pay Mr. Wagner's bill.
Just for clarity, so what's happened here is,
Which one we got, the ECC one?
yeah, so the lightning strike happened, the
6/16.
work was started before the PO, then it also turns out that all of this was done for the prior fiscal year.
What happened was, is Mr. Wagner comes down, 6/16, there's a lightning strike. He comes down on July 15th to talk to the budget committee. Well, I asked the question, because he's requesting money, Ken, you haven't started that work because it would make it a liability last year and there's no budget. Even though he's saying it's emergency, he said, no, we did the work on 6/30, which was 2 weeks after the actual incident.
Prior to a PO.
Prior to PO anything, well, prior to budget approval. Didn't have any, so it's never got budget approval because it's too late. July 15th, you can't approve a budget back in 24. But as soon as he got that work done, he made it a county liability. So now we have, under apparent authority, a county liability and expenditure with no budget and no PO. So at this point, I told him they said, budget said, well, we need to go ahead and pay it anyway. I told him to go ahead and send the bill to us. We received the bill today. So we closed our books on August 31st, not all. We had to. So we've closed our books, got the bill today, so there's no liability set up, no PO obtained, and all you guys can approve a PO exception after one anytime more than one. So right now, I'm just asking the committee for better word to approve me to post this and to pay his bills. I mean, I don't think he did anything willfully or purposely.
So you're talking about a prior period adjustment?
We can do, that's our statutory, when the books are closed, we can do it in period 13, so we end up on our balance sheet and on the expenditure. So for better word, the audit will see it and everybody, because it's after the time. It's immaterial, I could argue it's immaterial and post it in this year, but I think it's better at this point to go ahead and force it, and even audit may even give us a finding. Our materiality levels, I think, it's way below our materiality level by any means. But mine is right now, for the committee, my best recommendation was for us to go ahead and push it back into last year, let his budget run over and go ahead and pay it.
Am I in the right emails here?
It says ECC on the top, on the line.
I mean, I see insurance.
The 29,000?
Yeah.
There's a bill back there too.
I see it looks like insurance paid some funding for this.
Yes.
So wouldn't they just offset? I mean, I don't know.
No. Per state statute, county commission has to appropriate anything received, no matter what source derived.
So this insurance policy came in.
That's what would allow you to
Original as kind of new sources of income, new sources of revenue.
to pay for the repair,
He
right?
is not able to move that money to the repair without commission.
He can't, period, because he did the work in the prior fiscal year, and you can't adjust a year's budget once it's closed.
So we need to approve it here, we need to send the commission to approve it.
I think there's nothing to do other than you guys approve it, and, because he's got grants that gets folded up, he may or may not run over his budget, but he's definitely gonna run over on that line item, so, because of apparent authority, unless we're gonna argue that it's not a valid bill, I think our best thing is to pay it and hope that audit don't give you a finding for it.
Make a motion to pay it.
I second that.
We will require the corrective action plan.
I mean, you guys can do that, we'll send Mr. Ryder.
We need to
Make sure that. This is a weird one, because it's literally like a late time, and it's zeroed out, like I don't. What's the other side of it, personally, I'm not.
Well, it's a new source of revenue, and a new source of expenditures.
So it wouldn't change the existing overage, like it wouldn't make it worse.
County commission, what should have happened, if it was that big of an emergency, you probably should, I'm not sure why it didn't have, why it's 30 days, maybe you had to wait on the vendors, but if you're going over your budget, you knew we were going to do a transfer number 2, even per policy, it would have been called an emergency purchasing committee, went to the county commission, they would have appropriated this fund, he would have got a PO and went ahead and paid it. That's the appropriate action.
Brown's question, this motion will include a corrective action.
Well, I'll just make an amendment to Toby's,
So can I get clarification on corrective action? Do you want them to, because we're requesting for, do you want them to send us a corrective action plan? They do post it last year and pay it. Do you want us to request the, department heads, because it used to be when we did corrective actions, they had to come to the committee and explain it afterwards. Do you guys requesting that too?
Is this the first occurrence for this department in this?
No.
I think it would be helpful.
He's got 2 more here. He had, let's see how many he's got before this. Let's see, I'm trying to go to this. He's got 1 up here at the top. So he don't have all, this is the second one. The big deal for that year, we got 2 more over here, but to be fair, this is only his, unless I'm missing something.
It seems like such a weird.
His second one for the year, but the reason I'm bringing it here as much as, number 1, if it's the second exception, you have to prove it. Number 2, it's outside the fiscal year now, and we're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it a little bit unique from an accounting perspective, but and versus taking him off the job, coming in and talking to us.
Okay.
I think Ken Wyman, I think we all know him as just a great professional in this field. This was something that the lightning strike struck the building that basically runs the county from a dispatch situation. It deals with the sheriff's department, the highway, EMS, EMA, everything. And I think he was looking at it from a safety position for the county to get things worked out as quick as possible. And that probably outweighed his judgment in the process of what we did here.
No, I think you're right. I think he had to do what he had to do, but I think it's an interesting dilemma because it's more of an accounting deficiency than it is saying, hey, he didn't use good judgment or didn't do what's right for the citizens. It puts David in line from a GAAP accounting perspective, puts him in line. So that's the only thing. I think there's an awareness thing for him to understand. You got to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. You got to let David know you got to work it through accounting.
Yeah, that's what I think it needs to be. It's going to be something in the back of his mind. Next time this happens, we got to do that.
No, to be fair to Ken, he did send an email letting everybody know about it, but it was too late to do anything at the time.
So we have an amended motion on the floor.
Can we, have a restatement of the motion? How do you wanna go? Was
So
your motion?
I'll amend that and say, go back to my original statement and say, in lieu of having Ken appear, let's ask for a written action plan. And before the next meeting, we can review and approve it next meeting.
Can I say one thing? To be fair to Ken, he did send an email back on, I'm trying to see if it's in here, before the year, telling everybody about this, but there was nothing that could be done because of the timing. It was like late June.
I personally don't think there's any action plan that could, it's just so bizarre.
It is an oddity.
I mean, this is the first one for this area.
It's the second exception he had this year, but we usually don't have things. And Ken did send an email on the 28th. I don't think he understood the liability because he did it on June 30th instead of, we're going to push it into last year. Made this liability. Otherwise, it would just be a failure to get a PO because it was an emergency and he didn't have a budget, which, probably could grant that if he didn't have a budget. We wouldn't give it. The commission's going to ratify it. So I think it may be better just to have, if I get Ms. Browning to send him one, Ken, just be aware of fiscal year end dates. If you have an emergency, we need to be careful, try to avoid doing it on that day because it didn't correct it. Versus him having a correct action because.
To say that, just an email having him understand the importance of it.
And then, if we could also send out to everybody the emergency purchase order, because that seems to be a lot of this, and I agree with Toby that, it was urgent, but maybe everybody needs to review the emergency purchase order procedures also, because in this, I understand what you're saying, that it was an emergency. We have a lot of other emergencies that have happened, and I think everybody would do well with a refresher on what to do if you have an emergency, and you're 48 hours? Is that what it is? 24.
But we'll have the purchasing person send a link to our purchasing site, website, tell them what page it's on again. We'll reiterate it and get her to reiterate it.
And ask everybody to review.
What made this unique is that it crossed over county periods, and that's what creates.
We would have still had an exception without
And
it.
Ken did send.
Just understand, at 6:30, if you have that, it's going to create an issue for David.
So really by what the private actions, if it's enough to impact your budget, which it was, we probably should have called emergency purchasing and try to get it on the commission.
Yes.
He did, and it was the 16th. There probably wasn't enough time, but he did send us emails around and after the 16th about it, but it was too late to do anything.
All right, just to be clear, we've got a restated motion that approved with an email from finance to
Mr. Wyman.
Ken about how to handle these in the future.
Great.
Okay.
All in favor? Oh, I think Bob said
Oh,
it.
okay.
It don't
No,
matter.
I was just saying that, I agree with that, yeah.
We'll take your second call.
Yep.
All in favor?
Uh,
Motion passes. So that brings us, if I'm following along, to C, for fiscal year 2024. Is this Corson involved in the lightning?
Let's talk about it.
Before we approve those,
yeah, I think this is done. Are we here?
Yeah,
Give it out 25.
25, that's what
I'm
I'm
trying to get the page there, see what page are we on? 203. Okay, I'm on page 203, which is 25, okay. Let's talk about the first one for the mayor, and, it's the RV lease, and we went back, and because leases are technically not on there, we pulled that back, but they did fail to get the review from legal before they signed the lease, and I think it's just more of a misunderstanding from them. So my recommendation would be to approve this one and just have Mindy from the committee send in the morning a copy to the mayor and his administrative, or whoever's doing his POs, on our website of where the county commission policy for legal review is.
So, on page 203, which line item?
Well, it'll be on here, but it's actually on here because it's not been approved yet. I don't think she put it on yet.
The 25 list is there for your review to see.
The ones I've already done.
Sections approved so far.
These are the 25 right here.
Well, they've all been approved by me. This next one needs to
You've
be.
approved them.
Right, this next one's not a PO exception because we went back and reviewed it closely, and we thought he was probably falling within, the RV fell within the lease exception. We initially didn't think it did when we reviewed his contract closer, but he still failed to get full legal review, so I'm asking to approve basically where they failed to follow the legal review on 204, 202, so they did go back and fix it afterwards. But, and we'll send them an email in the morning if that's what you request with the link to the policy again.
Which line do you want?
Number C3, or it used to be B. 3? I'm sorry, two, item 2. Yeah, B2.
This is the resolution we just upped to $5,000, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's for the review for legal. They didn't get legal review before they signed the contract.
So what is your recommendation?
Right now, it's not a PO exception, but they didn't follow policy, so I'm just asking you guys to basically just approve it as is, and we'll send them an email in the morning with the link to the website where the legal policy that was adopted by county commission resides on our website.
Good, does that work for you?
Yes, since I'm the next item on here.
And we don't need a vote on that? We don't need a vote on that. You're just sending them a more of an update?
Do you need a vote for the approval of the?
Well, it's not an approval for a PO exception, but I would like for since it is a payment we're gonna make and it didn't follow policy, just to dock it in here, we made you guys aware of it.
Okay, got it.
Docket.
Dock it and just say that we're gonna send them notification.
Seems like we have a lot of these exceptions.
But we have more than we used to before. 123, we had 1 or 2.
What has changed? Has anything changed?
There's several department heads and new employees, and I don't know. I mean, not a lot, that's where I'm at. But there's been some unusual situations like the lightning strike. The RV's an unusual thing. There was always a requirement for legal review, but since you guys adopted a new policy that have us to verify, we've been verifying all the legal review, and that's where some of this came from. People were supposed to have been doing it the whole time and just weren't doing it.
Can we,
So we've basically been catching them now because they haven't been following policies. Because like everything else, we got limited resources and we verified the most important items. That when you did the one on the legal review, you put in there for us to verify, so we started verifying them.
I'd like to make a motion that once Mr. Lawing has made his one exception per the purchasing policy, that all other items come back here before we just approve them for our approval with a correction plan. All in favor?
Clarification after the first one, you want me to tell them to get a corrective action plan, send it to us, and then be here to present it before we pay anything or give them a PO. Because it may incur late charges, but they probably wouldn't.
Right, and that's, how often does this cut out?
We hope it ends.
Most of the time, you don't end up with late charges anyway, so.
But how often does this committee meet?
Well, they can meet at least monthly.
But y'all do meet at least once a month?
Well, they meet when needed, but they might start meeting
I
monthly.
just didn't want bills to sit for 3 months waiting on a meeting.
If we had, what we've done in the past, if there was anything for the committee, we always request the chairman to call a meeting. And sometimes we used to have I think 1 month we might have had more than one meeting, but a lot of times before we've had meetings every month.
Okay.
So it's not unusual.
So that brings us to item 4, the law office.
That one is where I think the law director just, was trying to go ahead and keep his, services moving, so he signed it. And then we sent it to commission because it was a 60-month agreement.
Yeah, I believe Mr. Becker asked it to be sent here. I will say, though, in my defense, if I can put one on real quick, this is a $70 supplemental to a $700 a month contract that went through just fine. And I was relying on the resolution that was passed in January, and I was treating this as an online purchase of a sole source software because you only have Westlaw or LexisNexis. So there's really nothing else out there. And this is supplemental for e-books, hardcover books, and things of that nature. So I would still argue that it falls within the purview of this resolution. However, I will shut up.
Thank you.
On your earlier motion, if you could just consider adding an item, since you're going to require them to do a corrective action plan and to come to the committee after my first exception, can you write that on there to request us to go ahead and notify all departments of that? So they'll be aware that after the first PO, they're going to be down here to get payments made.
You would do that?
Yeah. So we'll just get Mindy to send an email out to everybody, be aware of financial management.
So I'll make a motion that we ask you to notify all departments of this change going forward. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Do you need, okay, so the law office is in the past, that's already been taken care of, it's already been paid, I assume. Is this a dock item? Are we just docking?
It's already been to county commission, it's just like it's a docketing item.
So it's a docketing item. Very good. So we're on to, under new business, item B, grant accounting discussion.
You're at 6 and 7.
Oh, 6 and 7, back to lightning.
6 and 7 are both to do with the beach. It's to do with another lightning strike. This one is actually the beach tower that happened on 6/30, was brought to the budget committee on 7/15 to add in the budget. The budget wasn't approved till later, so I think the issue, because Mr. Widener has 2 here, I think the issue is they didn't understand that since this was approved by the commission tentatively and the budget wasn't approved, they could still request a PO. Kind of reading through his emails, do you think that's kind of what they were thinking? And even Carla leads in there, so I don't think a corrective action plan is necessary because Carla, his man, said I should have reached out and asked her questions on what the correct procedure would have been, and so failed to do so. So she's aware she's messed up. She should have called and we've been more happy to help her. So I'm requesting to give us approval to pay these 2, and if you look at the email trail on the thicker one, you can kind of see we do go back and forth and ask for a better word of corrective action anyway. So Miss Carla admitted, she messed up and she should have just called and asked us. And then if you listen to Kenny talks about transfers, to be clear, we do, Beth does notify everybody after we post transfers, and it's actually available in Munis, so I just don't think Ken works in Munis that much, so he doesn't think he gets notified, but Carla does. Just a clarification because it's leaving a minute. Is that
Beach Tower just docking too?
No, Beach Tower is asking them to approve, to give Ken 2 POs for failure to get POs. But without, and I'm requesting this one instance without a corrective action because they've already, plus we've not notified anybody.
So I'll make a motion to approve exemptions for items 6 and 7, the beach lightning strike, without corrective action plan because it's already been dealt with.
Sure.
Do you have a second? All in favor? Motion passes. So B, grant accounting discussion.
And everybody's seen where they've moved the grant administrator to finance, and there's still discussions on budgets. These are to provide the information and context of what exactly happened with the grant accounting. If you look at this first one, it's the resolution from May 18, 2009. I came March 1, 2009, and my number one complaint was the grants were not being adequately filed and maintained. Audit came in, and their number one complaint was items were not being filed and maintained. I went to the county commission and asked for this policy and for help. To alleviate it, until that time, they actually gave us $10,000. On September, let me me see, when did we hire? December 12th, I hired a grant administrator. It was an employee in my department. The mayor's supposed to use them to apply for grants, and we were mainly supposed to be using them for accounting. When we got into the administration portion, Mr. Holt needed her significantly more, so we never got to utilize her for that. We came in and wrote the information in 2012. A couple of years later, because she was doing projects and for budget cuts, they had another project manager that they actually, in 13, they moved her into his budget, and then on 15, they actually cut the project manager out of Mr. Holt's budget. So what happened in the thing is, what's really going on is the 12 Act requires us to maintain all grant documents. We do our best. What we do is put them in when they come in for budget requests. But the issue we're having is like requests for reimbursement. We have one May 2023. We haven't received $3 million after the end of the year. Just like the park, when it came up as a question, I had to contact legal and get the codified. So right now, my feeling is the things are still not being completely maintained in there. And we actually had a training for people entering in directly faced into the project accounting, but talking to Mr. Holt at the time because of the cuts in 15. Even after training, there wasn't enough time for her to do that because she's doing projects and grants. So the short of it is right now, they talk about moving Ms. Norfleet back into her office, but if she's doing mainly projects, it really doesn't help us with this issue of the 12 Act.
What is her office?
Right now, she's still into my office for Josh's. So the thing comes back to the same discussion. If she's doing accounting for running projects and applying for grants, she's not really, well, running a grant for projects is kind of a question of control finance anyway. It's not really helping, but this brings us back to the whole thing, is that originally, we had a grant account. Now, they have moved the grant account in finance, but that's for the opioid. They're paying 75% opioid, 25% finance. Almost all those times, opioid, and we actually take finance supplies and finance staff to help with opioid things as needed. So really, he's almost 100% opioid. He really doesn't help with other grants. But my thing is right now, when we have major issues with grants or projects, we don't think we're getting documents. Plus, we're having some issues as far as reimbursements of getting the documents. And per the 12 Act, where everything's maintained electronically, that is nowhere near happening.
David, let me ask you, where does the salary reside today?
Today it resides within my budget, but there's a discussion they want to move it down to the mayor's with the employee. So the question is, they moved the employee in our office, but really what the problem, and that's why I haven't done anything at this point. One, is still in flux. And number two, it looks like to me the actual position is morphed into project manager and grant applier, and the revenue accounting portion is not, because when I hired her, she has an MBA, but it wasn't her specialty. She was to do both. Right now, I think we're really tying a lot of things up that's not necessarily working as it was originally proposed. And
let me ask you about the grants themselves, just interested me. What are the volume of grants per year that we have to process?
How many? Like right now, we've got the ARPA stuff. So we actually outsourced that because we didn't have a full-time person. We've got several people to administer grants, and we get the paperwork. So Ken White usually has 3 a year, maybe. We got DGA. Then we go over to Mr. Merriman has a couple.
Yeah,
Sheriff has several.
The library? The library's
Miss
probably
Norfleet probably has, they have 4 or 5. Miss Norfleet has how many?
Do you have a list?
Cam2 has.
That's what I'm headed. I'd like to just get a list of the grants that we get on an annual basis, just so we can get an eyeball on how many of these we have.
There's several.
Didn't we vote? That's been my biggest problem.
You voted, but then right now it's getting back and forth on, it's back down into budget.
It keeps getting brought up in a committee.
But the question is, if we're really doing running projects, that's kind of really getting outside the scope of finance, too, what we're kind of running into right now, versus what this position was originally.
On page 303, it says that we will maintain in a centralized location a copy of all pertinent grant documentation for each grant provided to the county. Do you have that?
We had training for how they can enter it. The problem being is, it's like everything else. Say, for instance, just to be fair, Mr. Merriman, he does grants, but he also works in drug court and does a whole slew of other stuff. So getting him able to scan and getting all that stuff in is really problematic. If Ms. Norfleet's running all these projects,
it's really problematic because of her time. So we've asked people to do it, but there's really not time. Well, what's running into her is, we think they should be maintained, the resolution says they should be maintained, and we have trouble finding documents sometimes, like, we're tracing down reimbursements, and
Would it be safe to say that really nobody today's got complete responsibility for grants?
no, that's my problem, and then just like, the whole thing about the Brown Park that we've all heard about, okay, this is where, when they put the Brown Park in the budget with the one grant document. I just inquired where the $500,000 is at, I was told it was in a trust. I requested from legal if they can get a copy of the will that I'd never seen, and then, we went down the road, so after the fact, we got the first grant document, after the fact of the donation stuff, we're not necessarily getting all those documents. The problem is somebody needs to get them, which is time consuming, and then somebody needs to scan them into municipal tax and all these project ledgers. Otherwise, we're
And the
after the
original
fact.
ask was a grant administrator, right?
The original act was a grant administrator, which most of the duties was grant accounting with some help applying for grants.
And it's morphed into this.
It's morphed into project administration, grant applying, and grant administration. It's really morphed into a different
Yeah, let me keep going down my thought process here. So we really don't, we could get a list of total all grants. I mean, so you could get a list, so that's just a control thing that I think we should see. And secondly, really, we don't have anybody wakes up every day and grant accounting is his or her responsibility. I think that creates issues in terms of just controls. But it also, we could be leaving money on the table. We're not processing grants timely. Do we know, David, how many of our grants are still sitting idle that need to be processed at ARC?
I can tell you right now that we know there's the one thing with that house where all stuff, there's since May 2023, we got $147,000. We still got $100-some thousand we haven't received. We were told we were going to receive from Miss Northfleet. At the end of the fiscal year, we had deferred revenues we didn't receive in 60 days on that one grant of about $3.3 million in effective fund balance. We're still waiting. Mr. Rogers informed us that he doesn't apply for any.
But we could get it in the process.
So he's got several out there that we know there's money. DGA, we actually use one of our employees that should be doing something else to fill out the paperwork for DGA because several years ago that was started in some form or fashion. I'm not really sure. I think it wasn't being filed timely years ago. So they tried to take it on sometime before my time, but there was no staffing. So the job is within your department, the pay schedule is within your department, job description's within your department? No, they just put it this way. You're telling me, it's more, yeah, okay, that's one thing. But the original placement of the salary was within your department? Yes, but there's basically there was no position, I came in 2009. My concern was grants, so this resolution came up about it. The other thing was there was a lot of costs, and to handle until we got into the next year, they gave us $10,000. We came in 2010, the next year, we had to recruit somebody. We recruited an employee. The employee was to be, most of their responsibility was to be grant accounting and help apply for some grants and some other stuff. Well, the apply and the administration got to be, it took so much it never basically got to the grant accounting portion, kept going down the road. We even got to the 12 default, so we just started gathering what we could on the front end, but this resolution has never happened. We even had some training with Miss Northfleet, which was happy to do it, about how to enter things into munis, but she talked to Mr. Holt, he had all these other projects, so the paperwork, what we were passed back, she didn't have time for Mr. Holt to do it, so we just didn't happen. And that's not counting for all the other grants out there. And now the commission has voted that she goes to your department. It's in back on. Why can't we just do what's been said? Well, right now, it's down on the budget committee, and because it was in flux, I mentioned, is it fine to wait till it's dealt with this month, if it's gonna go back to commission again? It was put under old business, under budget.
What can we do to help you?
Right now, my question is if we're moving somebody, if that person's a project manager, that's really more project managing, it's really not accomplishing the original thing. Are we wanting to do the resolution, if we pull that person back in, or are we gonna leave them where they're at? What we voted on. Well, the thing is, if we do that, then there's all these projects that she's working on that's in the mayor, it's gonna have to be handled some way.
Maybe we should consider, there's a couple things. One, I mean, from a dollar perspective, we could be leaving a lot of money on the table for the county choose to move it back down the budget or they approve and have it moved, there should be some reasonable transition period where she can work through those projects and maybe hand them off to the appropriate person, not just a dead cold stop. You could just transition that time.
Most of our projects now would have been done by somebody else if the position was cut. But the mayor cut the position because he had her over there, so we, at the end of the day, just ended up with the Grant County.
Well, I would say this, if we had that person allocated to grant accounting and grant filing, if the mayor needs another person for project management, it either, figure out who that person is and you hire a grant person, but I have concern from a financial perspective if we're not processing grants timely and we're leaving money on the table. And have we got any deficiencies from audit on this?
Well, the only thing I seen lately we got was a report on, I think it was small ones, like maybe something to do with.
But they're not going to tell you, David, you missed these grants.
No.
They're going to tell you those that you processed, you didn't document correctly.
Plus, they're only going to get us for material non-compliance. So, for instance, like this whole deal about the park, we get them after the fact. If we had them prospective, we would have been much better. So I think if we split them into positions, as you kind of mentioned, the most pertinent thing would be take somebody that's already doing these other projects and push them over here and hire somebody that's actually specialty is the accounting portion. Having the accounting looking for these reimbursements. Right now we do have Dustin, like if he runs into fire department grants or even anything, he will notify people. So we are.
Well, I mean, we got
and Miss Northleaf has grants. She has grants.
Well, I mean, I hear you. But I think it would be my recommendation that we see a complete list of the grants. And if we could get that inventory before the next meeting, I think I would just like to understand what's the volume, what are the dollar impact here? And if we're not processing grants and we're leaving millions of dollars on the table, it would make sense to hire that person. That's all they do when they wake up is do grants. So I'd like to make a recommendation, Mr. Chairman, that we do that.
So if you could, if I could, help you with your motion amendment.
Sure.
I would like to see us leave the resources in the budget where it's at and suggest, and send a recommendation to budget that they do not move the resources out of accounting, but perhaps consider adding more resources if the mayor needs it. But I believe we need, if we had processed that $3.3 million, we would have interest in the bank to pay for another position, maybe 2 more positions.
Well, right, and that's a reality. But, I mean, that's in addition to getting
Right.
the inventory of grants.
We need to send a recommendation to budget.
You want to do them separate, do the inventory one and we'll separate?
Yes, let's do that. Go ahead.
So I would like to make a motion that we request a complete inventory of our grants outstanding and grants processed.
Do you have a deadline?
Year.
Do you have a deadline on that request?
Well, I mean, would it be possible to get it at the next meeting, 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll put a project listing.
And what I'd like to see is those that are eligible, those that have been processed, and those that are still outstanding with an estimated amount that we could collect. I'm just trying to understand what's the financial impact of this. I hear you on the.
I think it's more of a control issue.
Yeah,
It's internal control. I think things are being done later than they should.
Can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. So, motion passed, we're gonna get an inventory at the next meeting.
The projects and stuff.
So I'd like to make a motion that we send a recommendation to budget not to withdraw the resources from accounting, that we need resources for a grant accountant to fulfill the resolution from back in 2009, to monitor grants and fulfill all of those requirements, and that budget the resources elsewhere if they need to, but leave accounting the resources to manage their grants.
I would second that, but I would also want to make sure the mayor understands what we're asking to do here, since he's not here. But I'll second that with that request, just to make sure he understands it.
the thing that I want to understand is, when we made that decision in a commission meeting, why can't we reference that also?
Mm-hmm.
We've already made that decision once, now it's being drawn back in and changed.
Parliamentary procedures, Mr. Lyons?
That and the other issue, do you really want me, say if I take this employee that's working, dislocate him all the way from Josh's office, we run it back to commission and dislocate him back down to the mayor's office. Morale is one, and number two is just the time the county's spending. I mean, it needs to be put to rest where they want them, but number two, we need to figure out what the functions are. If the function's solely to administer grants, which is kind of, I think, more to a lot than the county portion's building itself for quite a bit. And I have no problem with administering the grants, as I've told Mr. Isabel. The only issue I do is for having an employee of mine that's administering the grants, the mayor at the end needs to sign off on the final project. I don't want an employee under my authority signing off on the building, or we run, if it's been done by resolution or whatever, going through Gen Ops, and I'm gonna have an employee reporting down to Gen Ops, and Gen Ops is gonna need to sign off on the project. And I mean, it's kind of about somewhat outside of the county, but still management, and I can deal with it, if that's everybody's wish and it's legal on the board. This is just not the first time that things have been decided in budget, and then there's an entity within the budget that wants to talk about it again. But
So, on the last budget meeting, it was on there and it was moved to old business to determine.
Can we make a recommendation and go back to budget, where they make sure they do business now? I mean,
It's still on there.
they put it in our business last month, so we'll go back to the.
They'll be addressing it coming up again. So my motion was that we recommend that. I don't want to talk about what employees doing what, but we need a grant, we need resources for a grant accountant in finance. And however budget can make that happen, that's up to them, but we need resources in finance. And that's my motion, that we recommend that they do not remove the resources.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All right.
Motion passes.
Can I say one thing? I'll be more than happy to do whatever the county commission had. The only reason I didn't send an email to go ahead and move is because I was told it was in flux. So as soon as, if there's a 100% decision, because, you know, county commission's ultimately who employees and the answer to, definitely gonna do their will within, you know, legal bounds. Well, mine is, I really like, I officially requested, I saw it come up in budget. Here it is here.
Well, technically, it is settled until something brings it back to the commission to make you either rescind it or, so it is the ruling of the committee, or the commission, until something else gets up.
If they decide to leave in finance, my first thing would honestly be to go down there and find out what the employee's doing and the functions, to make sure we're moving them smoothly and correctly. That's the first thing, because even if it didn't come into flux at this point while we're closing the year, and I probably would leave them set, and at this point, I'll be going down there and getting duties and figuring out exactly what's going on. Probably come back to this committee and make sure we're all on the same page, and then, it would have probably been an agenda item to start moving the transition employee upstairs, because we got a spot. Right now, I would like for it to be settled. If that happens, then I'm gonna go down and determine what the employee's doing, the duty in and out, and before I actually move them up, make sure this committee and everybody's on the same page is kind of, because we're transitioning some projects too. And the question is, my big question from day one, who is signing off on the project, mayor or the, Gen Ops or somebody other than me, because really I don't need the controls of the financial and sign off.
I agree with that. I mean,
It's the control I don't like with all of it, because there's a lack.
And like I said, I think there's enough money to make a new position maybe.
Was Ms. Nortley signed off on this project? She is under the mayor's authority through, like Josh is on there, so the question is, I work directly for the commission, so who's gonna sign off on the project? I mean, I would, but it was more technically, well, she's looking at them signing off, but
Well, it's an internal control question too.
the question is, and the same thing, just like mine, is everybody knows in here, I don't sign checks, I don't touch things that would allow somebody after me to come in without changing, procedures to steal or to do something they shouldn't. My heart, I know I'm not gonna do it, but I can't guarantee the next person's not, and it would be very bad for me to be sitting somewhere in a meeting with somebody just like you guys, and they start asking about a large theft in Sumner County, and I say, well,
from what I've read, they significantly changed everything. Well, you guys are gonna be fine with it. I say, well, I knew it was that way, but I knew I wasn't gonna steal it. You're gonna be like, that man's not the brightest, and we don't want him to do our stuff that way. So that my point is we need to keep the good controls, because you gotta be skeptical of the next
It needs
person.
to be separated. I mean, if you got one that's doing what requisition.
I agree.
That's,
But we made the decision,
How many checks have I written since I've been out there? How many receipts have I written? There's a reason for that. And how many times have I touched cash? People hand me a check that I've carried up to the deposit, that'd be the furthest, and that's because they handed me a check for something big, their money was coming. Like if they handed me a check for that $500,000, I would have carried up there to deposit, that's kind of the extent we go.
So we've made those motions and they passed. We're on to item number 2 under B.
And this is what
It kind of flows into this also.
we'll be 100% clear, we're not asking for any money to be paid back or anything, it kind of flows under your other discussion. And this is what happened to our sheriff that just recently passed away. If you look at this it kind of looks convoluted, but there's a reasoning for it. On the left is what the sheriff got paid last year.
I'm sorry.
On page number 308, it was the next one.
308, thank you.
It was on the agenda. but I
Anybody that's listening can follow along too. Thank you.
I keep forgetting it's written on the agenda and I look, so I forget to tell everybody. Apologize. If you look on the left, you've got all these rates to June 30, 2024. The sheriff was paid $135,286.64 because the way we break it down, there's $112 due to, and so we paid it next year. And that was April on his payroll. So we came in next year and divided the sheriff just like the county employees by 26 payrolls. Well, the sheriff's paid an annual amount, and the way we calculate what's due to you is there's 52 weeks in a year, so you're due 152, and since you're a 24/7 official, the percentage of whatever week. So if you come under the pink box, that's 1 week's worth of salary going all the way down through there, and then that's the number of days that he was in office, which is 5 out of 7, May 12, May whatever. Well, if you take these 5, we paid them based on the 26 because you'll be paid over that, we've ever paid in 2057.42. That's one of the reasons I think we need to move the elected officials to the 15th and the 30th, because if an official passes away, wins the lottery and moves to Florida, or moves out of district, or whatever happens, this will happen. If we know it's coming, like the assessor, then we'll adjust your pay, and it's not an issue. But to be the clearest, because when officials leave office, there's always, a lot of times, massive confusion when we short their check because they've been over underpaid, and they don't understand most of the time. But that's just discussion. I'm in no way asking for this back. Personally, I've mentioned this to the financial management and the whole deal here before. When I mentioned it to audit, they said we're not going to come back and pound us for that, but they did say they recommended I report it to those in authority, which would be this committee. You guys can decide to report it to the commission or stop it here, but I think stopping here with the minutes is adequate enough.
Does everyone understand, because I'm reading the email on page 311, does everyone in the sheriff's office understand at this point? Do they agree with your
Yeah, they got, the chief deputy does, and Ms. Bravo worked with, which he's now the sheriff, I'm sorry, but he was chief deputy at the time, right before sheriff, he understood.
So everybody's in agreement?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy to.
Spreadsheets and emails to her.
And we spent a lot of time working to make sure it was correct, and then no, I'm just saying, I think we need to docket it in the minutes. That way you guys were made aware of it, and we know this overpayment did happen, but.
So moved. Stop.
Okay. And then the last issue, couple issues is 3, and we kind of went over that about going ahead, and this is where I think we need to kind of mention kind of a plan going forward on the payroll, and this is kind of my recommendation, is what I think is the employee that's half payroll and half purchasing. We advertise it out, move it completely over to payroll, did a much smaller amount of help from these consultants with things such as telestaff and the departments where we need help on a basis rebid, and we'll actually send it back to the vendors that were the best out of this group. We get down below the 100,000 in there, hopefully significantly. Move forward with one, fixing EMS, finishing their export for the sheriff, and then going back and finishing the export with all these if the accrual issues, the holdback issues, and we can't do the export without the holdback issue on it. And kind of start moving forward that way. is with Toby's blessing, continue doing his bids, but kind of put the PO, if possible, discussion on hold until next fiscal year and we get down the road. And then also.
Can I ask, how is that going, Toby? I mean, I know you guys are taking on your own POs,
Yeah.
doing that, how's that working out?
Well, Tom, we've been, I've been hit with tornadoes, floods, blizzards. Me and David have talked from time to time, but we've really concentrated here at the plate just on some of the things he's been talking about, like chronos and trying to get some things done with the other departments, and then us coming in and working with them as well. And then I've been concentrating on working, trying to get with him on bids and getting that process going. And it's just been a process that we've been working on continually. I don't think there's been a time that we haven't been talking.
And
Do all the bids happen like more in one part of the year, or how do your bids?
Most of them do, Terry. I'm gonna have a few bids, coming up just to have, some other contractors, that have the ability to, if I get into a situation, I can have some other contractors help me with some things. I'll already have it set up. And, but for the most part, most of our bids bid one time and cover.
You have like a season of bids?
Yes.
I would like to request we do the chrono stuff and actually get, like, the bids with Toby, and then go back with Toby after we get these bigger ones done, and go back and work with his chronos before we touch the POs if possible, because it's a bigger, it's a bigger issue. Well, I think he's good with us doing the bids, work with the bids.
Yeah.
He sends us copies of the POs. I think the more pressing issue right now is your chronos. And I think once we get sheriff uploaded and these accruals handled and ECC with, go over and start working with Toby on his chronos and kind of, back, if Toby's good with it, kind of back push the POs and push forward his chronos to start working with him on it. Sure. With his, if that's what he's willing and wanting to do. And you guys are willing and wanting.
Did you just want to discuss item 3 with us, or did you have an action item for us?
Well, that was what I was saying, if you guys are fine, that the accruals, the payroll, the retro, we've had a lot of issues, but if we follow this plan, because we can kind of give you some of them, we have people that are getting payroll in late, they're having trouble with their timekeeping, their leave audits, but I think right now, dropping back the bid, slowing down, moving the resources over, I think it's probably our best move, but we can kind of hash through all these problems we've got, which is really going to benefit nobody. But there's one that we've had significant issues, but my first thought was to bring it up at the meeting now, but I think we probably are going to try to talk to them one more time before we have to bring it to as far as the committee with their really late payroll, because I really hate just to bring somebody up unnecessarily. But right now, my request is for us internally to rebid it, utilize it up to the $100,000, the resource movement, especially for this implementation, completely over to payroll, bid it out as the payroll clerk, or advertise the payroll clerk, pull it in, finish those departments, and then before we approach Toby, maybe next year, whenever about POs, we go and get his chronos done first, or start working on it with him and get it done.
So we move on to item 4, the salary survey.
Well, I'm asking for, I don't want to move forward without you guys blessing, so I'm asking for a motion.
So you do want us to take action on that? I mean,
not the accruals, but not the accruals, because John's going to talk to the elected officials and everybody, but on the first half of I would request a motion if possible to move that direction, if the committee's okay with it. And if Toby's okay with working with us on the, process. And the bids, it sounds like me and him today, we were fine on it.
so I motion to move forward on those items. Second?
Which, well, can we say, come in and we're gonna rebid this to the items we just need to get it under the $100,000.
Well, yeah, I thought we were.
Yeah.
Took
Wait,
off
this is just
You didn't vote them all in, so, number 2, move the person on over to payroll. Drop back Toby on his POs until at least next to July. Go ahead, keep doing his bid with because he's wanting to do it with us. Number 2, when we get, imports done with EMS, sheriff, and get the holdbacks, and, them all fixed, and approach Toby after we got everything imported to go ahead and start implementing Toby while we're doing the ECC. And Toby seems to be, I think Toby's fine with that. I hate to speak for him, but he's good with it.
And can you just line that out for us document for next time.
It'll be in the minutes and then we'll put it in the document.
Perfect.
We're gonna put it in your implementation, like, requested by, Mr. Kerr.
And I made a motion. Get a second. Get a vote. And all in favor? Aye. And the last item here is the salary survey. I'd like to discuss that just briefly. If you look back to the minutes that is included here on page 313, you'll see that I made the original motion for the salary survey. I'd like to discuss the possibility of requiring an organization chart before we spend money on a salary survey, because at this point, we don't have an organization chart for our county. So I don't see how we can start putting in pieces and doing a proper salary survey if we don't know what.
Can we request it from the individual departments? Because, I mean, we don't have a staff to really do it, that's the issue we've got.
I think from individual departments is a good idea. That would be the people that know. We have some, we just need to roll it all up together, because the salary survey is going to cost us anyway. The tighter we can get this, the better the information, and we can see what's coming.
They gave us a quote, and we can provide them the internal information. My one request, because I went through these before, and there's always this feeling that somebody messed with them or tampered with them, and my request is, and I know, is two things. The consultants, and I mentioned it earlier about a subcommittee budget, that it be else budget or this one, a subcommittee of 1 or 2 members. It can be in an open meeting where they work with the consultants, people bring down all the data. That may get some of the elusive that somebody's tampering with the salary scale thing. If it's on this hour in open minutes, it may make people feel more sure. I've done several of them. There's always the same discussion. The departments have that feeling, and they call me saying they feel like that somebody over here's talked to the consultant, and I'm like, well, not that I'm aware of. But I would like to request that, just like budget, that you guys send it to an open subcommittee to work with source. We can send them the data, and we can be down here to work with you, but I'd like to have all communications with them be very open, because salary is a very important thing, and I've been involved enough with it to know that everybody that comes to their salary departments, a lot of them get nervous that somebody else is tampering with their stuff. This is the way it is. Every organization.
Where do you suggest the subcommittees?
Here, budget either one. And I would recommend just 1 or 2 members, and to record it the way people can watch it and work with the consultant. It would get a lot of them. We can send them data, but I would hear us
2 members, one from budget, one from finance, work with these consultants, or what?
I'm just saying 1 from budget, 1 from here, or something. 1 or 2 commissioners, members from here, whomever. They can work with us and consultants in front of the owl, the way everybody can see it as a very transparent process. Even when we had the HR down here working on it, people had this feeling it was being messed with and called and complained to me, and I honestly don't think any of the stuff was going on, but I heard it. I mean,
how do you know how long this will take? Do you know how many days you're going to bust it apart? I mean, there's a lot of components to that.
I just think it needs to be
So how about
some kind of something open. I don't know.
If you have 2 commissioners on there, there's a risk to deliberation, and there's going to have to be a notice.
Because they can vote on the floor.
Or they can deliberate.
so would this
There could be one from the non-commissioner meeting from here and a commissioner possibly.
would this
Can you not just have
item
somebody from finance just kind of be part of that?
We can, and I mean, I can even, but my thing is, I'm gonna probably record them and maybe have somebody else in there, because the thing is, all these people, every time, even when we've done them, and then we end up with the same people that have to do it, and then they've done them, and we hear.
Can I recommend that we move it to old business and you come back with a written recommendation for us instead of a maybe we could all bring back our recommendation instead of just brainstorming. We're
What I worry
now
about, David,
over
is
2
when you
hours.
start talking about salary surveys, you have department heads, then before you know it, you've gotten into performance issues with employees. I've seen that happen, and it kind of goes downhill. I would recommend that we keep it tight and maybe have a finance person, but I'll bring it back. But the reason I wouldn't make it totally it needs to be transparent, but I'm talking about give the department heads some ability to talk, if they need to kind of talk about an employee or 2 and why they're going in this direction or why they're not. It just gives them more flexibility to kind of be candid about it.
I understand that. My only concern is what it went the last couple of times. We were there when it went,
Yeah, can we just agree it's not gonna go well?
Well, mine is
No, just
mine is
like-
like my thought, because I've been through that's how it goes, yeah.
Maybe there's a summary of the committees, that we provide that, but even before it goes to vote.
So I
So
make-
there is transparency about that.
I make a motion that we move salary survey to old business and everyone come back with recommendations that have them.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Adjourned.
Thank you.
Robert Rules says, wait, we get to the end.